did see that promo. I did see that promo. That was good. It was nice. I was afraid it was gonna be a Hulk Hogan focus, you know, as he does.
I figured, yeah.
But he did a good job with that.
He did it very well. Very tasteful tribute to Mean Gene.
I was very afraid that WWE were going to use that as a pure excuse to bring him back, and you know, a part for sure. I mean, that's their MO. You know, they want to bring Hogan back at all costs.
Yeah.
But it was a very tasteful tribute. I did see that. I heard SmackDown was good this week. Last week.
I missed it, but I followed the Becky Lynch stuff going on through social media. So.
Yeah, I mean, I listened.
Her and Asuka had a nice exchange of words and a confrontation and stuff.
I've been seeing that.
Looking forward to that match.
Yeah. I just question this this fresh what have they been called? The fresh start.
Yeah, I know. It's like fake reboot.
Yeah, it's a fake reboot. Like nothing's actually changed. No more rematches. Let's book everybody to have a rematch.
Yeah,
but it's earned. I was like, they're doing it.
As long as I've been a fan, I want to say I've only seen 3 major reboots, and it was probably when Vince McMahon had officially launched the Attitude Era.
Yeah, with Warzone and all that.
Yeah, Vince Russo and Eric Bischoff on that Monday Nitro reboot, which was actually marketed as such, and probably the Hogan Bischoff era in TNA, you know, day one. Other than that, I've never really seen an actual reboot coming from WWE.
Well, the PG era, that was a big marketing thing.
Yeah, but if you think about it, all like it's like 1 week to the next, and it just turned into, you know, the language, no more blood.
But you could see it happen.
Yeah, you could see it happen.
It was very visible.
The women no longer were sexualized, and it was still rocking off of the ruthless aggression divas. So it was kind of odd.
Yeah, we're gonna exploit these women the best we can by staying within this like age range restriction. Like, oh, this is very weird.
Yeah, I remember I had those. Usually, it was only at SummerSlam. They had like swimsuit competitions, but it was no longer the, you know, the scantily clad swimsuits that we all grew up with during the Attitude Era. So it's just like odd, you know, like you could really tell it's like PG rated stuff. So funny.
We'll get to the whole Scarlet Bordeaux strip show on Twitch.
Oh man, is that the lap dance with Scott Steiner? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a lap dance. It wasn't. He was just. We'll get there. It was really funny. It's dumb. Man, it was dumb, but it was funny.
It sounds dumb. I mean, even when Scott Steiner was relevant, Scarlett must have been what, like 10 or something. It makes it weird.
It was still funny because it was Scott Steiner. I'm like, oh, look at this promo coming here.
Yeah, he's still doing the Big Papa Pump stuff.
Oh my god, well, he did say "holler if you hear me," which got a big pop out of the crowd. Yeah. Okay.
If he's ever inducted, I wonder if he's gonna go in as a tag team or as this Big Papa Pump persona.
It'll probably be a combo of both, I imagine. But man, he became a big WCW and TNA guy, like outside of WWF, I would say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'm ready to go. You ready to get this thing started?
All right, JD. Yeah, let me just get a second drink so I don't have to break.
Sure, me too.
Do that right. So let me get that ready and then we'll start.
Okay. Welcome everybody in the chats. Just making sure everything's all connected, all nice and the such. Talking lots and lots of wrestling tonight. Episode took a long time to put together, that's for sure. Let's see. Becky Lynch to Asuka, I'm going to hit you 9% harder just because of your Twitter. That's funny. What is Becky Lynch tweeting at Asuka? What? Oh wait. At the Royal Rumble, I'm gonna slap that paper plate off your face for cooling down my title. Some people like to rescue animals, but I'm a sucker for titles in distress. Pretty funny.
Alright, this one I already got my 2 Jack and Colas.
No one beat me to become champ when Asuka left TLC. My championship was red hot, the main event title, and the talk of business. How's it doing now? Exactly.
What is that, more Becky Lynch stuff?
Yeah, it's Becky Lynch and talking. I'm a little worried for Asuka's reign, to be honest. Of course I was as soon as she won it, but...
Alright, I don't think she's going to lose it at all. I honestly think she's going to retain, and Becky's going to go on to win that Women's Royal Rumble if WWE's listening to the fans. Other than that, I'm actually worried what they're not going to do with Becky.
Yeah.
It seems to me as if they might even be building towards Charlotte versus Ronda instead, you know?
Yeah, what I was thinking was this would be a perfect opportunity to do the double winner thing with Charlotte and Becky throwing each other out last.
Oh man, that would be actually pretty cool.
The Bret Hart Bulldog thing.
Yeah, that would actually make sense too.
Or was that Bret Hart Luger?
It was Bret Hart and Luger.
Bret Hart Luger, yeah. In 90, what was that? 94?
90. I was gonna say 93, but no, I think it was 94.
I'm having trouble remembering.
Yeah, because Hulk Hogan left, so they needed a new hero, and it was between Bret Hart and Lex Luger.
Still makes me laugh to this day.
Yeah. 10 months later, Hogan signs with WCW, so that was pretty big.
Yeah. But see, I would have used this to book Asuka look like a real champion, you know? Have her build someone else up in that division.
Yeah, exactly. This should have been done a year ago, but it's like it's too late now.
Yeah. I mean, they could have just thrown, instead of having Naomi in this
oh man.
I don't know what this bath towel and Mandy Rose hitting on
it's
the husband is supposed to accomplish.
First of all, I can't stand Mandy Rose, and secondly, Naomi just she annoys me for some reason. I think it's her stupid techno dance entrance, but
for Naomi,
I can't stand both of them.
Well, Naomi, they made just a dancer, and that's her background, even though she has proven to be more than capable.
Yeah, that's just it. It's just that now they've already booked her into that character that it takes away from what she was capable of.
And then,
I mean, she pretty much shined when they first did the she debuted, what was it, at the first NXT of women, back when NXT was like the stupid show with AJ Lee and all of them.
Oh sure,
I think she was one of the women. Yeah.
She showed how athletic she was.
Shined.
And then Mandy Rose is hitting on the husband for what reason? Like, I don't understand the motivation. Because she feels like it?
Yeah, it's kind of like they're probably going for like, oh, you know what, I know I'm get off on making all guys want me, so let me attack somebody's husband, that kind of thing. But yeah, there's really no basis, around that.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going for anything, so the distraction, like, even if Mandy Rose wins, what does she win out of it? No, nothing.
Yeah. Stupid booking.
And all it does is make Naomi look like a psycho, even though she has the right to be a psycho. It hurts both characters so bad.
Yeah.
Plus, you can smell the Vince McMahon stink on it.
Oh yeah, I really like the idea of that.
A blonde
Mandy
woman
Rose.
stripping in the shower with nothing but her bath towel on.
Yeah.
I remember when Trish Stratus did that in the 90s or early 2000s.
Looking for WrestleMania.
I need this for Fastlane.
Friggin' Vince, he's out of his mind.
God. And then on the other side of the spectrum, it's we got nothing planned for Ronda Rousey, and we don't want Nia Jax in the main event anymore. pull a name out of the hat. Sasha Banks. Here you go. Like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. Feed what could have been a good feud just to blow it off at the Rumble in 2 weeks. Like, it's like, I would have liked to see that match. Now I'm just going, oh, so Sasha Banks is going to get squashed. Great. Okay, all right. I'm all set.
Let's do it. Okay, just let me know. I already got my file saved, so let me know when to hit record.
3, 2, 1, go. It is episode 22 of the Red Leaf Wrestlecast. This title is called Wrestlekingdom: The Unboxing Anniversary. So as we do, if you can tell by the title, you can tell what shows we're going to cover. I am your host JD of the Red Leaf Retrocast, and I'm joined here with my buddy Rad Zero. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks a lot for having me again, JD. I am your co-host for the Red Leaf Wrestlecast. Here we have an amazing amazing show in store for you guys. Can't wait to get down right to it.
We got a stacked show. It is our first real show of the year, coming off our best of 2018 wrestling cast, which was a lot of fun to do. Definitely recommend going out to listen to that. We got some hate, Rad. We did. Got a lot of hate. Yeah.
Which parts?
We got hate for Walter being our calculated number one, even though we said Omega and Johnny Gargano and others were, our voted best. But we got a lot of hate for our calculated ones. Not enough WWE names, they say.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And Omega not being number one and those kind of things. So Walter being put high got a lot of flack. But if you're a listener of the cast, you shouldn't be surprised. But yeah, that was a super fun episode. Today we have a little AEW talk. We got some Drew McIntyre talk. Beyond Wrestling. Our spotlight is Legion of Doom. Brought to us by our November contest winner for the Wrestling Cast is GKeeper30. He got to pick our wrestler spotlight, and he picked the Road Warriors / Legion of Doom. He actually forgot the name, and he just sent me a picture going, I remember these guys, and I really want you guys to talk about them. They'll get me down nostalgia road. Well, isn't that the point? Part of the point of our wrestler spotlight, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So big thanks to Gkeeper. His Twitter is at Gkeeper30_. So definitely go and follow him and thank him for picking that. Our indie scene. This is going to be the start of our new tweaked format. Less WWE, less Ring of Honor kind of deal. Just going to keep up with their major shows along the year. So NXT UK Takeover, NXT Takeover, and Rumble will be in the next episode, not in this one. But our indie scene, we got MLW, we got Impact Wrestling, we got Stardom, Ice Ribbon, WXW, lots of that. Progress Chapter 82, Wrestlekingdom 13, and then naturally we end with our little WCW segment, and we are at Spring Stampede from April 19th, 1998.
Yep.
Stacked episode. This is going to be super fun, Rad. And if you've noticed, yes, in 2019 we have the new artwork all in full swing. That was brought to us by Craig from Mason Craig, twitter.com/Mason Craig. He did all the artwork you see here for the Red Leaf Retrocast. So thank him. And if you want more artwork done, hit him up. All right. Now that's all done. So before we get started on this thing, any particular shows or wrestling you would like to discuss, Rad? I have 3 things I'd like to discuss, but I want to know what's on your mind.
Okay, well, definitely Wrestlekingdom, so I know we're going to do NJPW. That's probably it. That's the only thing that I can think of right now. Everything that, you pretty much already mentioned that I wanted to discuss on this episode, so I'm intrigued to see what you have in store for us.
Okay. Well, I mentioned this briefly on our Wrestler of the Year cast, how I started the new year. I did go to Beyond Wrestling's show Heavy Lies the Crown event on New Year's. I got to see Tracy Williams' 300-plus day, 17 defense title reign come to an end against Orange Cassidy, a major rising indie star. So I was probably the only guy in that audience that wanted Tracy Williams to win.
Oh wow.
So super fun, well-timed match ending with Williams selling his ankle being worked and unable to hit the finisher, getting Cassidy to take advantage. What's funny is you can actually see me hard cam in the crowd, and my reaction when Williams goes down. He went for his pile driver, then grabbed his ankle.
Yeah.
It's really funny. I kind of marked out. I was like, oh no!
Very cool.
And then a weird ending to the main event. When the clock struck midnight, the main event started, and that was an ECW style fans bring your own weapons match. It was a really fun, like dumb gimmick thing, but it had a weird ending that just nobody popped for, which was.
What did you take?
I thought it was really weird as well.
Okay.
It was Nick Gage against Josh Briggs in their whole. Josh Briggs is on the best winning streak in Beyond Wrestling's history, and Nick Gage is the ex-con, a bank robber, badass dude. So they do an ECW style match, and it ends with, I believe, a guitar shot over the head or something, and then instead of like a 1-2-3 count or a tap out or anything, Briggs puts a sleeper hold choke on him, Coquina Clutch style, and then Gage gives the ref the middle finger and passes out. And I think everybody felt the same way, and they go, well, that's a weird way to end a hardcore match. With the whole pass out.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, we all got what they were going for, but it just didn't come across right. But regardless, it was the best Beyond Wrestling show I have been to date. So you can actually go check that out on Independent TV. IndependentWrestling.tv. That's a new little site. Cool stuff. So AEW had a rally, Rad. Maybe you've heard of it.
No, I wonder which one.
Oh, well, it's this new upstart company called All Elite Wrestling by some nobody indie wrestlers.
Only the hottest thing going today.
Yeah, it was earlier this week, and I watched the rally. It came across as
so did I.
as like a hype press conference, but it was a rally at the end of the day.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it really did have that history-making feel to it. These guys are really changing the world, as they say. It's not just a slogan, but how they run the business. This is essentially something that is going to be run by the wrestlers for the wrestling fan. And not only that, but there's a lot of things involved, like who's in charge, giving the wrestlers the opportunity to purchase health insurance, things of that nature. So I really think they have something going here. I'm definitely glad to be a part of it. Both you and I and many fans out there have been a fan, fans of the elites, from whether they had work, in New Japan Pro Wrestling, part of the Bullet Club, Ring of Honor, you name it. Now these guys are actually getting together and forming their own wrestling organization. So it's really cool to see them be a part of. And I haven't really felt this excited about something probably since I may have been too young. When WCW started, and broke away from the NWA, but probably something as big as Hulk Hogan signing at Disney, or the announcement of Monday Nitro. I haven't really seen anything or felt as excited as I am until this was announced, and the whole rally was, it was just very cool. This is what wrestling is all about, and I'm just glad to be a part of it as a fan. Real good time, excellent time to be a wrestling fan, a fan of pro wrestling throughout.
Yeah, I've seen both sides, as social media and the like. There's two sides that I've noticed. Not very many people taking the middle, I would say. There's a lot of people that are going, well, these are just, some upper echelon douchebags that think they can start their own thing. They're going up against WWE. They're immediately going to fail idea. And then there's the other side of the spectrum that they're going to overtake WWE immediately. I'm
exaggerating a bit.
Like, okay, guys, calm down.
You can't start a cartoon company and say they're going to go up against Disney. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I will say this is a formidable alternative. Maybe down the road, direct competition. But as of now, it is simply just an alternative, and it's just more wrestling for us fans to choose from. Hey, if you guys can't stand the booking of WWE, Brock Lesnar being champion,
Mm-hmm.
there's other wrestling out there. It's not WWE is not the end all be all, and the Young Bucks and everybody else involved from Cody Rhodes and the rest of the elite, that you do not have to wrestle for Vince McMahon or wrestle at WrestleMania to be successful in the business. And these guys are really changing the world. This is one thing that a lot of wrestlers from the past should have done with their money, and get together and create something
Mm-hmm.
big, create something new. And
Well,
this
that's
is the
what
start
Jeff
of something
Jarrett tried
different.
to do with TNA.
That's true. I will give him that credibility, and that was a success to an extent. However, I feel that the AEW has generated more buzz than the beginning of TNA ever had.
Yes, and that is big. Social media also has a lot to do with that, for sure. Especially with the age of the internet and how fast news goes. It's
Sure.
a very much different environment than
We really are smarks nowadays versus back then.
Right. We're much more, a lot more fans are industry, has a lot more knowledge of the industry than it's just the guys in the back kind of attitude. The other thing is, I think the minds behind this and the backing is much smarter, and have learned a lot from just experience within the industry over, the decades. While when Jeff Jarrett did his own thing, it was essentially just him, and the ego gets in a way of a lot of things, and obviously that's one worry I have with the ego becoming something. I mean, all wrestlers have to have some ego to an extent. What's that going to play into AEW? I'd like to think that it will play just a minor role.
One thing I will say about that, though, is I think regardless of the characters these guys portray on TV, the Young Bucks seem to be family men. They are Christians.
Yes.
They're just very humbled by what they do outside of the business in real life. And same goes for Cody Rhodes. He's already made money, obviously, in WWE, but he's the son of a legend and Hall of Famer, Dusty Rhodes. And it seems to me that what Cody wants to do for the business is exactly what he grew up watching his dad do. And I just think that's going to play into here. And so putting ego aside or anything like that, that may be important to an extent, but I see a lot of humbleness and humility starting this company, and that's what it's all about. That will give the business or their organization a future, and it's really cool to see. I'm glad these guys are successful.
It's also very much different wrestlers on the scene now. I mean, most of these guys in AEW don't even drink.
That's true. That's another thing too. We don't have to worry about rock star cokeheads or sex, drugs, and rock and roll in the background. This really is a professionally run business, even if it's just by the wrestlers. Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, they all have a good head on their shoulders.
Yeah, so from that perspective, this is already off to a good start, and a lot of the names they're already signing, I think you can expect a lot of those main guys that were featured at All In to be signed. Definitely. I mean, at the rally, we saw MJF, the 22-year-old piece of gold, the real one, not Leo Rush. You have Joey Janela and Penelope Ford being featured. Janela's hopefully to come back from injury within the next 4 to 6 months, so we'll see if he makes it for Double or Nothing in Las Vegas. It's May 25th at the MGM Grand.
Yep.
Who else? Pac made a big surprise appearance. He was the big surprise. Holding the Dragon Gate title too, and teasing a match with Hangman Page.
I think this just shows you that AEW will be open with their talent, and I think they've mentioned that they're open to cross promotion with a lot of the indie promotions, as they announced also. Who do they partner with? That Chinese company, I forget the name of it that they mentioned.
OWE, I believe, was what it was called.
So I know a lot of talent and cross promoting will come out of that, and that's great because pretty much it's not just what you saw or who you saw at the rally, but the possibilities of who they can bring to the table for events and whatnot. The booking and the cards are endless, so it's really cool.
Yeah, and I think this Dragon Gate title and Pac being there, all speculation on my part, but you said working with other companies. that to me is one of the big takeaways that AEW is going to be shooting for, is working with other companies rather than against them. You know, and having the Dragon Gate title be featured is good for Dragon Gate. It's like the third best promotion in Japan, which isn't saying much, because nobody watches Dragon Gate. Hardly Japanese fans watch Dragon Gate.
Oh yeah, that's a very limited group. You have to be a hardcore indie wrestling fan like my buddy here, JD, to be watching Dragon Gate.
And even then, I don't watch a lot of Dragon Gate.
So that's saying a lot. But yeah, I totally agree with you, and I'm glad that you brought in All In, because I think pretty much what we saw at that event was kind of like a glimpse into the future of what we're gonna get out of AEW. So that's really cool to see. And if it means involving other promotions, other wrestlers, that's what wrestling should be. And I'm definitely down for that. So I'm all in for All Elite Wrestling.
And I think they're taking notice on what promotions like Progress and WXW are doing, just to name a couple that we're familiar with on this podcast. With when you work with other companies, you do bring in new talent and keeps it fresh. You know, the regional booking style. You know, it doesn't make you see the same matches over and over again. So take the Omega Pentagon match. You know, that's a dream matchup. It's a one-time thing. It gets a lot of buzz behind it. And then you got your other side of the spectrum with your usual guys, and they're involved in stories. Take the Hangman Page, Joey Ryan storyline, right?
Yep.
So I think that's the goal they have in mind, and working with other companies can reach that goal. And with the signing of Chris Jericho, I think is a big important factor in that. I mean, hell, they can make a, this is just me just talking out of my ass, but they could make his annual boat tour, Boat of Jericho, be a pay-per-view event annually.
Oh yeah, man. And fans will beat their nose for that. I know I would, even if it's $39.99.
Oh yeah, I mean, Jericho runs the Cruise of Jericho. God, Boat of Jericho.
Yeah, essentially they pretty much already have All In, I'm assuming, as their maybe annual pay-per-view, even though they've already changed it to Double or Nothing and changed it to May. I'm pretty sure they'll work something. They're going to need a flagship show. But aside from that, as we know, a lot of wrestling promotions do, they do need, that summer beach theme show, if you will. And I think the Jericho Cruise, or the Cruise of Jericho, would be a perfect fit.
And it'd be so unique too.
Yes, it would. It really would. And I'm just so happy that Chris Jericho signed with them. That was probably my biggest takeaway from the show. I really marked out, and I was just so happy to see Jericho there. And I mean, I was concerned because I think Jericho has already a history with the Elite, and there was a lot of storytelling there. But I figured, okay, now that they were going to branch out and make their own, Jericho was going to stay stuck in New Japan, and what we're going to see. But now I learned that he signed a contract, and there's a possibility of him still working for New Japan, if I'm not mistaken. So that's really cool.
And that's the other thing. When I was reading these kind of contracts and like what the guys were offered, Jericho's a good example. He was offered 3 years, and his self stipulations, like he can still do the cruise, and he can still work New Japan if New Japan wants him. And when you have contracts like that, it gives freedom to the wrestlers rather than hold them under, lock and key, like what WWE does with the NXT UK contracts. So I'm really hopeful for that, because the idea is that you bring in these new guys and they can still help out their regional promotions, their indie promotions, along with AEW. And what that does, and that does a number of things. It's good for the wrestler, and it's good for the promotions involved, because it gets you to highlight each other's wrestlers on each other's shows. So it's good for everybody.
Yeah, and Chris Jericho obviously is a huge name, probably their first big name signee, and by big name I mean, somebody who's already mainstream, already established. Jericho has been wrestling for more than 2 to 3 decades. Has wrestled all over the world across promotion after promotion, so he's very renowned. And having a name like that on your roster can really do the company some good. I mean, hell, I still give credit to Jericho for bringing more awareness than it already had to New Japan when he did his Kenny Omega gig over there. So just announcing him as a signee for AEW, that's something.
Mm-hmm. Then we can keep our fingers crossed on Omega signing with AEW February 1st. He's still under contract.
Seen, right?
He's still under contract with New Japan.
Yeah.
You know, he lost the title. We'll get to that match later. So he can't legally say anything. So anyone who is expecting him to make an appearance or anything at the AEW rally and be disappointed, well, then just educate yourself a little bit. And just realize that he couldn't.
Yeah, it'll happen down the road, and I'm okay with that too. Even if it's a surprise at Double or Nothing. I mean, in the end, the fans always win, and that's what the fans have to remember. You know, you don't want to spoil one of your biggest surprises, and they might have something up their sleeve. Who knows?
Yeah, don't blow all your load in one go. You know, you got to save something. You got to save something for the honeymoon, man.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Pac making an appearance and Chris Jericho coming out at the end, that already solidified the rally as a big time event with or without Kenny Omega. So yeah, they're definitely going to play their bones right, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of rallies and press conferences down the road for something new like that.
Yeah, not to mention there's still, it's still a wait and see situation for sure. TV deal is still a big time factor taken in. If they get that, then that immediately puts them as, in my opinion, the second best promotion in North America. And yes, over Impact, we'll get to the state there. MLW is on YouTube, so they don't have anything. And Ring of Honor is milquetoast, and they're on Sinclair. But
Yeah,
they're
Sinclair
on
broadcast.
an hour once every Friday. It's very milquetoast, as I said. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. This is already the official #2 promotion in the States.
And they haven't even started yet. But the
and they
TV
haven't
deal,
even
of course.
started. Yeah,
hinges on
there's
that.
still talks about that it's pretty much a promise that I guess they've landed a big time cable provider channel. So we'll see where that goes. There's even been rumors of TNT, so I would love to see wrestling on TNT again, but I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, the rumors I've seen was TNT, TBS, USA, and ESPN Plus, which I thought was interesting. So we're excited for AEW. I think we all are as wrestling fans. I'm excited to see a promotion of this caliber and potential come to the North American market. God knows we are starving for it.
Yes, we are. We really need it. So,
all right. Well, moving on. Next question is, and I've been thinking about this all week. With Drew McIntyre seemingly finally out of his henchman role, which seems to be forever. You would never guess that it's been 8 months since his Raw debut, Raw debut, I should say, back in April of last year. And this got me thinking, is Drew McIntyre's first 8 months on Raw a failure? What is his current status? What's your take, Brad?
So my take on that is I wouldn't necessarily call it a failure, but I wouldn't call it a success either. I think pretty much all year since his debut on the main roster, Monday Night Raw, has pretty much been he's booked as a mid-carder, nothing more. Even the couple of times that he got the main event spot, it was always a mid-card type of role or storyline, nothing too important or anything like that. However, as soon as the new year rolled in, we suddenly saw Drew McIntyre, who just recently broke away from Dolph Ziggler, who is his right-hand guy, so to speak, when they were running rampant on Monday Night Raw. Now he's back to singles. Had the confrontation just recently with I even think John Cena, if I'm not mistaken. So that's kind of like
there was a promo on Monday.
Yeah, just this past Monday at the very start of the show.
Very Becky Lynch-esque.
That's the beginning of Drew McIntyre.
It was like the same thing.
John Cena's hair and whatnot. It was hilarious. But either way, for them to have the trust factor there to be in a promo with John Cena just goes to show you that maybe his booking days will be a little bit more positive. I think the guy deserves it. Even when he was young and first debuted in WWE a decade ago, he was the chosen one. He was booked in high-profile matches, main event spots on the pay-per-views. So, why not now? He's already wrestled all around the world. I think the guy deserves it, and I want to see Drew McIntyre as the top heel. So, as per your question, the first 8 months on Raw, if they were a failure, again, I wouldn't call it a failure nor a success, but his current status would be, I think he's on the way up.
Okay, I'm going to take a much more harsh approach. Because again, I have been thinking about this for a long time this week. He debuted in April and immediately became kind of the diesel for Dolph Ziggler immediately, and I thought that put him down a peg upon arrival, which was a big negative. And then he was seemingly in that role. What did that end at? Super Showdown, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that was a long time. They won the tag titles, but let's face it, the tag titles mean less than nothing at this point. And even during that run, and Dolph Ziggler was the one that got the high-profile singles matches with the IC title and Seth Rollins feud, while what did Drew McIntyre have? He was the henchman. Not good. So that led into the little thing with Braun Strowman and the Dogs of War, in which then now both Ziggler and McIntyre were henchmen for Braun Strowman, because Braun Strowman was the push along with Roman Reigns, and Lesnar was kind of there. Sort of.
Right.
So still the henchman, even in that, and despite not losing in singles matches, or he was the one to eat pins, he wasn't doing anything. It was just mediocre. They always made it a purpose to not pin him. But is that good enough for a push or highlighting? I don't think so. I don't think that's good enough. And then what should have been a feud with Ziggler, breaking up the team, it was solved in a single segment on Monday Night Raw, right? Where he just goes, "Oh, we're not together anymore," and Ziggler goes, "Well, you dick," and then kicks him, and then Ziggler pins him. And his first loss, just like that, bang. It's like, there's another black mark, right? You thought he was going to get this big push. They were protecting him, at least during this time of purgatory, as I'm gonna phrase it, and then he just loses. I know there was interference, but he still lost at the end of the day. And then there was a cage match, and then Balor gets involved. That led to a no stakes, nothing match at TLC, and then here we are. And then there was that little he's with Lashley Corbin thing, and then the fresh start. Okay, they disbanded that like yesterday's garbage, and now here we are with McIntyre and the Cena promo on Raw. The Becky Lynch approach, where we want to keep Becky Lynch in the highlight, and it always seems to do, WWE always seems to do that, at least in this generation, where if we want to push someone, they put them in a program with Cena, and Cena might put them over.
Might, yeah.
Might, that's kind of the key word.
Yeah.
So I think the writing's on the wall to be worried for Drew McIntyre. I think you can be positive. There's enough evidence to be positive, but Samoa Joe always looks strong, and then look what happened to him. Nakamura got a huge push when he was first there. He beat John Cena one-on-one. He got title shots, but what happened at the end of the day? They all lost. And now look where they are. So I'm personally worried for McIntyre. I do see his first 8 months as why bother? 8 months is plenty of time to tell a story and push someone to the top. Put the rocket on the guy.
Oh yeah.
That's more than we just saw Tanahashi, the broken old veteran, in 6 months go from nothing to winning the G1 and then main eventing Wrestle Kingdom.
Yep.
And the crowd fucking loves it. So you can't tell me 8 months is not enough time.
No, and WWE is more than capable of doing it. You've seen it with guys like Daniel Bryan, and now with Becky Lynch. Can't tell me they can't do the same for others.
Exactly. I mean, you can make something out of a guy in a month, 2 months. You don't have to just all of a sudden. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you can't do what they did with Sasha Banks, where she just wins a match and now she's in the title picture. Because then you can't buy them. You can't buy them as a threat at that point. You're just like, oh, you get one shot and then you're done, kind of deal. So that's bad short-term storytelling, and then there hasn't been any long-term storytelling. So I see McIntyre as a failure, personally. He does look strong, don't get me wrong, but that's it. He's just a strong-looking guy, and so's Samoa Joe.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. You're on the side of yes and no. I'm just straight no. I'm being harsh.
Straight no. Hey, and you know what? I don't blame you. I say I'm a little bit more optimistic, if anything. So I like to see the positive. However, we know how WWE is and how they book their talent. So what you're saying is actually very realistic, and I'm afraid that is the truth here.
Yeah, and hey, if I'm wrong, then fantastic. I'm glad to be wrong.
Sure.
But I can't in good conscience say the last 8 months of Drew McIntyre has been successful at all. I think it's definitely a missed. They fired the rocket, and then it only went about 2 feet in the air.
I mean, just take a look at what they've also done to Bobby Lashley. You know, one of the biggest stars that right out of Impact Wrestling, already established with or without WWE. And when he comes on board again, he's booked at nothing more but mid-carder. You know, where nobody even cares. You know, they cite him with what's his name, Leo Rush. It's just it's a mess. But probably the best thing going for him the past 8 months or a year that he's been there. So.
Yeah, Lashley showed up at the exact same time, and what's he done? He's won a singles match against Roman Reigns at a pay-per-view, and then that was it.
Yeah, nobody remembers, nobody cared. It came and went.
And now he's bending over in front of the crowd, showing his butt.
You're talking about a guy that was main eventing Impact Wrestling with Kurt Angle.
He had all the titles.
Bound for Glory had all the titles. You know, he's a huge name in the business, but obviously WWE's not going to book him that way.
Yeah, we'll see what happens at the Rumble, and then what goes down at Mania. So, oh, by the way, I officially have all my tickets purchased and ready to go for Mania weekend.
I saw that in the chat. Congrats, man. That's awesome.
Man,
so you already got your whole weekend booked.
Got the whole weekend booked. I got WXW America ist Wunderbar on Thursday. Stardom on Friday. That's going to be super cool.
Yeah.
What was originally going to go to the Revolution Pro Wrestling show, that's the UK promotion, but as soon as I saw Stardom was going to be there, I went, nope, booking that. So we're doing that on Friday night, and then Saturday night we got our tickets for the Garden for New Japan Ring of Honor G1 Supercard.
Sweet.
So that's really exciting. And I got some hate DMs from Twitter apparently, because they go, why would you go to New York City Mania weekend and not go to TakeOver and Mania? And my response was simply, I've been to TakeOver and I've been to Mania. I want to see something else.
There you go. And obviously the whole WrestleMania festivities aren't just limited to WWE produced shows, but rather everybody in the city at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think the shows that you will be checking out, that's really cool.
And there's time for Joey Janela's penis party Friday night after Stardom, so come on.
There you go. You're gonna have to give me a Stardom souvenir program, man, even if I gotta pay for it.
If you want one, then I'll get you one, Rad. I'll send one your way. A Stardom program. That's gonna be that's gonna be super really fun to go to. I think I might.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for all three of those. When my dad asked me, like, don't you want to go to Mania on Sunday? And I go, why don't you look at those ticket prices and get back to me? And he goes, oh, shit, yeah, no. He goes, how long's the show? Like 3 hours?
8 hours, you know, it's just crazy.
Well, they're like $500 minimum if you want a decent seat.
Jeez, yeah.
They're fucking crazy. Or you can spend $60 for the Garden in the 200 section.
Yeah.
You know, much different caliber. But yeah, it's a big wrestling festival. And I've been to like 3 takeovers. They're all great. Don't get me wrong, but how often am I going to be able to see a show from Stardom? You know?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think anytime any promotion outside or in Japan coming to the States, you know, it's definitely something to check out. So
yeah. So that was
definitely with you on that. I am also you know, not here to hate on it. I think that anybody going to WrestleMania festivities where they're hosting it should go to at least a Mania or Takeover. But hey, if it's going to get in the way of missing out, you know, on shows like the ones you mentioned, I'm all for it. So Stardom, New Japan, all that good stuff doesn't come here every day.
Yeah, I added up all the ticket prices, and it still comes out to less than a single Mania ticket.
Oh man, that's awesome. Probably gonna be more entertained too.
Well, it's 3 nights of wrestling as opposed to just 1 8-hour show. So
yeah, you know, pretty much Brock Lesnar, Shane McMahon. Yeah, we've seen that all too many times before.
It's kind of the same thing. Alrighty, we got a lot more to talk about here, a lot more to go through. I think it's time to play the Vaulter drop, and we'll get on to talking about the Legion of Doom.
You bet.
Alrighty. So brought to us by our November contest winner of the Red Leaf Retrocast, and a good time to mention, if you leave us a Stitcher and iTunes review right now in the month of January, you will be entered. I do recommend screenshotting me your review so you can be entered. You'll have a chance to win an Enzo and Cass Walgreens exclusive Pops.
Very cool.
So that's the prize for the month of January. You can find it as on my Twitter, pretty easy, at BowlingJD. So Gkeeper won the contest. He chooses the Legion of Doom / Road Warriors, one of the most unique and hard-hitting tag teams of all time. What's your history with them, Rad?
Oh, my history. Ever since I was a kid, two of my favorite wrestlers of all time, Sting and the Ultimate Warrior. What I did notice from that is that I think I was always attracted to the wrestlers that had face paints. They just seemed so cool to me, kind of like comic book characters brought to life. And I think the Road Warriors / Legion of Doom definitely embodied that. Coming to the ring with their awesome entrance attire, with those shoulder pads with the spikes and the face paint, they just look so cool. I remember having the Hasbro figures when I was a kid growing up. So they were definitely one of my favorite tag teams growing up, and my history stems from I'm not sure if I ever saw them in their early WCW stuff in the 80s, but they definitely made a name for themselves in my household when they were in the WWF, and I've been a fan of theirs ever since.
I'm very similar. They're my mom's favorite tag team because they're from Chicago. Cool.
Hey, she has good taste, man.
And she's from Chicago, so she naturally loved them. Anything Chicago related was all for her. And yeah, I love the spikes. I had those Hasbro figures too. I loved them as a tag team. They were just ass kickers, and they were booked as such.
Very perfect way to describe it.
So, the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom, the most imposing tag team in wrestling history, I would say. They dominated for like 20 years. They had feuds with Midnight Express, Money Incorporated, the Nasty Boys, Hart Foundation, the Rockers, just to name a few. But they never had a pure 2v2, tag match rivalry with Demolition.
Oh wow, that's an interesting fact. I never really realized that. I would imagine most of the rivalry was when Demolition was rocking Bryan Adams. What was his name when he was there? Was it Smash?
Well, Bryan Adams was Crush.
I'm sorry, yeah. Axe and Smash were the originals. Crush was the odd man out. Because I remember a lot of they did have some sort of rivalry going on with Demolition. I even saw Demolition as like the opposite of what Legion of Doom was, kind of like their arch nemesis, if you will.
Well, the story behind that was when Legion of Doom was brought in. They were the Road Warriors. When they went to WWF, they were repackaged as Legion of Doom. Basically, they just got the spike football gear.
Right.
Well, they came in to basically dethrone Demolition as the top tag team. And what was happening with Demolition was they brought in the third member, right? And we actually discussed this match at SummerSlam, where Demolition was losing their titles to the Hart Foundation, and they were trying to pull the switcheroo with the three of them. Well, Axe was suffering from a lot of injuries, and he was kind of on his way out. So Crush was brought in to kind of fill the void that Axe was going to leave and be that third guy. So think of the New Day and Big E is always injured kind of angle.
Sure. So
despite them they wanted to do a rivalry, they never really did it. They were always in 6-man tags and then the Survivor Series matches, and then it was just done. They never had the pure tag team match against each other, not a single time. So I thought that was a huge missed opportunity. And I remember always like looking forward to that as a kid because I was a huge Demolition fan because my mom was the Legion of Doom fan. I remember this like era in 92, I believe was what it was, or 93. But yeah, my mom was big into Legion of Doom, so I was like, oh, I'm gonna go against my mother, haha, I'm gonna root for the bad guys kind of deal.
Yeah, it was Demolition, man. Well, that's really cool. I did not know that. Like I said, I do remember them seeing on TV in so many matches, but I never realized that it was never officially 2-on-2, or at least when X and Smash were around or relevant before Crush. It's so funny because every time, playing with my Hasbros, I always pitted them together, or playing in video
Absolutely.
games. Those were the two tag teams I put together. So that's really cool. I had no idea. That's an interesting fact right there.
Yeah, and then I still believe to this day that kind of LOD was the reason Demolition was just simply phased out of WWF.
Yeah. I think maybe this was Vince's idea of, okay, if I'm going to lose my top tag team, I need to replace it with somebody else. He's always in that mindset, so I wouldn't doubt it one bit.
Yeah, instead of keeping Demolition relevant, he's just like, well, if this guy's injured, then screw it. I'm just going to bring these guys in and make them the guys. So, big missed opportunity. You would remember the Survivor Series type matches in the 6-man tags where Legion of Doom was with Ultimate Warrior, and then they would squash Demolition all the time.
Fitting,
that happened for about 6 months. But it's also Ultimate Warrior, so that's the only way it would go.
Right. I mean, he was like their top guy for the time, so.
Yeah. So that's what happened there. Well, as we do, if you're joining us for the first time, what we do is we pick 2 matches to highlight our wrestler spotlight after going over their little history. And the first match was your pick, and it was the Skywalkers match at Starrcade 1986 in the NWA. So this is before WCW. Why don't you take us who was in the match, and then what your opinion and what the match was about?
Okay, so Skywalker's match, Starrcade 1986. That was in the NWA before we WCW as we know it as. You had the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, obviously being accompanied to the ring by Paul Ellering, their manager, going up against the Midnight Express with Jim Cornette and Big Bubba Rogers by their side. This was a match I do remember seeing as a kid. I don't think it was live, but maybe been on a wrestling tape later on. I used to love going to the video store and brushing up on my wrestling history through wrestling tapes. I still like that term, by the way, wrestling tape.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this one interested me because the whole, I guess, spectacle surrounding the Skywalkers match. You're going to have 2 tag teams going at it in a very thin scaffold, suspended way above high from the ring. That was definitely something really cool to see, and it really was. I do remember revisiting it in the Essential Starrcade DVD about maybe a little over a month ago, a little over a decade ago. And from that time and revisiting it now for the podcast, I really didn't remember it being as short as it was. Granted, I think that was probably the best booking for it, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, either way, the story surrounding it, the spectacle surrounding it, it was definitely something different for the time. Definitely way ahead of its time. You had back and forth action, guys swinging back and forth, kind of teasing the crowd that they were going to fall. The crowd would go nuts and they get back up. Funny thing is that what I did notice, I'm pretty sure you saw this, JD. I don't know what the hell that scaffold was built out of, but it looked like it was just connected or put together by a bunch of like PVC pipes, and they were all just like breaking off. You could even tell that the Midnight Express, especially Bobby Eaton, was like kind of like concerned and worried. But I mean, hey, they really stood their ground up there. I mean, you're talking about guys that are weighing, close to 300 pounds each. I'd be afraid to be up there. So,
well, Bobby Eaton was interviewed at some point. I can't remember when the interview was, but he had legit fear because the Midnight Express were put into this match because they had a history with the scaffolding match in Jim Cornette's promotion, and then the brainchild that was Jim Cornette and I forget the other guy, they just decided let's make it higher. Let's put, instead of 5-10 feet in the air, let's make it double that, 25. That'll make it a big spectacle and awesome. And all that did was make beautiful Bobby Eaton just scared out of his fucking mind because he's like, oh shit.
Yeah, you could tell like he would like sometimes want to lock his leg into like a corner in case he fell, he'd still be hanging or something. It was kind of funny, but I don't blame him. Hell, I mean, I'm afraid of heights myself, so if I was up there, I'd be scared shitless. So. Yeah, it was definitely a spectacle to see. Very entertaining match, although it was short. I think it went for maybe about 7 minutes or so.
Yeah, it was not long, and that's probably for the best. but
yeah, from a booking standpoint, I think it was for the best. pretty much it was the marquee match of this event. And I don't know, maybe if you want to add anything else to this, JD.
Well, also at Starrcade 86, pay-per-view also had Rick Rude versus Wahoo McDaniels, a past wrestler spotlight, and Wahoo McDaniels we've done.
Sure.
And then Ric Flair in the main event, defending his title against not Magnum T. That was right after he got in that horrible car accident and was forced to retire. He was against Nikita Koloff. So and that was the Superpowers with him and Dusty Rhodes. Mm-hmm. So that was the main event there. So it was quite the pay-per-view. But if you go back and look at the promos leading up to this match, it's more entertaining than the match itself, because Hawk and Animal cut a brilliant promo in which they were on scaffolding, like off the side of a building, and they threw pumpkins off it, taunting the Midnight Express, saying that their heads would explode like these pumpkins, and then they'd overhead throw the pumpkin off, and it'd show the pumpkin, breaking into pieces. There's also a funny promo of Jim Cornette saying, "We're practicing for this. I'm gonna have my Midnight Express climb the scaffolding. We're gonna go over strategy," and it shows Bobby Eaton almost falling as he's climbing up, and he just goes "shit" on the camera.
Oh man.
Yeah, you can watch those on YouTube. It's quite something. And Jim Cornette's cutting a good promo, but he's empty arena, empty ring. There's just scaffolding in the back.
Oh, dude.
But yeah, the match was super corny. It was slow and dumb. It ended up being this thing that not only the NWA would use, but like ECW and other promotions would do. Where they'd be suspended in the air, and ECW would have a bunch of tables below them to kind of break their fall, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. These matches just never work. The spectacle seems like an okay idea on paper, but you're always just too scared that the one wrong move and then you could risk serious injury. And that's the major negative factor of this, and that's exactly what we saw with these guys just kind of hugging the sides the whole time. You can't really do anything. You can't wrestle in a wrestling match.
Right.
The Road Warriors did win, but the highlight was definitely featuring Jim Cornette as he was chased up the scaffold by Paul Ellering. And what was supposed to happen was Cornette was going to kind of fall off a bit. He was gonna hang there and then fall, and Big Bubba Rogers, aka Ray Traylor, aka Big Boss Man, was supposed to catch him. But apparently this was like his first year in wrestling, and he just straight up missed catching Cornette. Like, he wasn't in the right spot. He's just clumsy and didn't catch him. And this is when Cornette blew out both of his knees on the landing.
Oh yeah, man, you could tell the dude was in pain. And I want to say he mentioned this in the Essential Starrcade DVD. So very much aware that like you said, that was probably the biggest thing coming out of this match, is what happened after with Jim Cornette.
Yeah, not what you want coming out of your marquee tag team match.
Right.
And you can hear Cornette as he's leaving the ring, and he's like, "I can't feel my knees." I think I broke my knees. So bad. Oh, yeah, you can go listen to interviews of Cornette, like, talking about this match, how he came up with it, what happened, what went wrong kind of deal, why it seemed like a good idea at the time kind of deal. It's very fascinating stuff, but it's definitely a spectacle, I will say. And it's only 7 minutes, so it's not like you're eating up a bunch of time. And then, speaking up, not eating a bunch of time, is our second match, which was my pick. And this was the Legion of Doom versus the Nasty Boys at SummerSlam 1991, where the Legion of Doom win their first WWF tag team titles, becoming essentially the first kind of AAA or Triple Crown tag title winners, the AWA, NWA, and now WWF. Mm-hmm. This is also the same pay-per-view that featured Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect, in which Bret Hart won his first singles belt in WWF, and also the infamous jailhouse match of Big Boss Man versus the Mountie, which we've also covered on a past Spotlight episode covering the Mountie. Short tag match, as was the time, because it's tag matches in WWF. They don't really get more than 10 minutes. This was a street fight, actually, because prior to this, the lead up was the Nasty Boys were constantly Nasty Boys with Jimmy Hart always using the megaphone and weapons to get DQ'd to keep their titles. So this was a street fight, and Not what you would see a street fight as today, where it's a big spectacle where they go in the crowd and use a bunch of weapons and go up to the stage and kind of deal. No, this is just a regular tag match where a weapon was used sparingly. You know, mostly the megaphone.
Right.
And it was still your atypical kind of what you'd picture a WWF tag match to be. The match starts hot with the faces winning a bit, and then the heel team will isolate the face character until a hot tag is made, and then the tag team will get that hot tag, use their finishing move, and the match ends. And that's exactly what happened. So not much else there. The difference of the time for sure, and crowd firmly behind LOD and establishing them as the big thing. So
we're hot behind LOD.
I mean, I loved it as a kid. I don't think this is the kind of match that you would like to see on a pay-per-view today, but this is still kind of what you see the tag teams get treated like in WWE right now, is they go out there, have this sort of tag team match, and nothing more. I was just comparing it to, in my head, I was comparing it to the Triple Threat tag team match at TLC.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Where it was exactly like this. So I think that's a lack of innovation on WWE's booking standpoint and how to run matches. They're still way back in the times. How do you feel, Rad?
No, I totally. I think the comparison is very real, and that's how it was back then. So,
what worked 30 years ago may not work today, is kind of my point.
Not anymore.
Yeah, I don't think it's good enough now. It doesn't get guys over. You know, we could go on forever and ever on that. The point is, the Legion of Doom were super over. The characters were very strong. At times I think
that's what it was all about. I think tag teams today lack the characters of yesteryear.
Oh, sure.
And yeah, Legion of Doom Road Warriors were definitely that. So
they were also known for being really stiff at times. I'm pretty sure it's because of the steroids and they didn't know their own strength definitely. That they had. But I was a big Animal fan. I know a lot of people liked Hawk because he was the more mobile type. And he was just insane whenever he'd cut a promo because he was just coked out of his mind all the time. But I really liked Animal. I always looked forward to his really awesome off the rope power slam where he'd essentially be this like slow motion up in the air and then he'd throw you down. And of course the ever so popular spot, the Doomsday Device. Guys on his shoulders, clothesline from the top. That's what they're most known for.
It was a cool move, by the way.
Oh, yeah, it was a fantastic move. It got them over. It was probably the best tag team finisher of the time. And tag teams still use it to this day like it's just a normal thing. You know, I see it on the indie scene constantly.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, I really like the Road Warriors, Legion of Doom. It's a shame in the mid-90s they essentially disappeared, and that's mostly because of Hawk going through drinking and a lot of cocaine. Because in 1994, they essentially just disappeared, and no one heard from him. Or was it 92?
Might have been more like 92, I would say. But I do remember that. You know, there were just a lot of guys that I grew up watching, and they just no longer were there, and Legion of Doom were one of them. I think we didn't really see them make a big comeback until they did the LOD 2000 thing that they did. And even then, the sad part is that I think they even worked Hawk's demons, so to speak, into a storyline where
they did.
Hawk was always drunk, you know, arriving to the ring. So I thought that was very tasteless, but, you know, it was what it was back then.
Kind of like Jeff Hardy's storyline right now, currently.
Yeah.
It just never works, and it didn't work in the 2000s. Didn't work now. They had
Scott
a brief
Hall, Monday Nitro, same deal.
Yeah, exactly. It just. Well, I mean, Scott Hall puking on Eric Bischoff was pretty funny, but just that one moment.
Yeah, I think I guess this is like a separate topic on a separate cast in itself. But I will quickly say that even though we knew that he was being booked in poor taste, Scott Hall still rocked it, man. He made being drunk look cool, and yeah, I mean that's just the way it was. But again, those are the '90s. I don't think we'll ever see that again now. But
No.
yeah, it just doesn't work.
Well, maybe we'll see something like that at Impact. They do want to be edgier. We'll get to there. We'll get to Impact. But there was a brief stint in WCW with the Road Warriors returning in 1996. But when I say brief, it was maybe a year, and they didn't do much. They were still going through issues. It's a real shame because they were the talk of the indies in the 80s, and then, well, indies regionals is better to say, and then hot stuff in late NWA, early WCW, and they were hot in the early 90s for WWF, and then they just disappeared, which is a real shame. They could have, in my mind, they're one of the best tag teams that ever stepped foot in the ring. So that says something. Alrighty. Moving on to our tier 3 indie scene. Lot to break down here, so I'm going to play my frickin' sweet drop. Move on. Okay. All right, Rad. We got a lot to go. We got a lot to go through here. Have you, or are you aware of Major League Wrestling over on the YouTubes?
I am aware of them, and I have caught a couple of matches on the YouTubes. But however, I'm not really in tune with what's going on as of late.
Okay,
so
well, you've come to the right place. So
I'm in the right spot.
We're gonna start doing a little bit of kind of a bi-weekly recap. So MLW and Impact is something we're gonna keep up with in 2019, at least for now. So we're covering the January 5th episode 38 of MLW. We're not covering tonight's episode. We'll save that for the next cast. So this one began with Gringo Loco versus LA Park. Our chairman is back, Rad. A match that you know, they said LA Park is old and fat, but damn, he's still entertaining, which is quite funny. And Gringo Loco's this kind of out of shape fat guy, but he was getting himself over doing wacky spots, including a leap from the entrance scaffold. We got more scaffold bumps coming in our lives. There was a weird ref bump.
Scaffold podcast.
Yeah, there was a weird ref bump at the end that led to nothing. LA Park spear win. LA Park's entertaining. He was rocking his gold skeleton suit, Rad.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Something we saw at Spring Stampede, what we'll be talking about later. I got a kick out of that. Then we get some promo and story packages, such as Cotto Brazil is coming for Ricky Martinez because Ricky Martinez attacked him in a club and fucked up his eye. So there's that. And then all of Promociones Dorado have been issued a bunch of fines for shivving Conan the previous week. Conan got stabbed in the main event 2 weeks ago, Red.
Yeah.
By Loki. And you might ask yourself, so Loki did it for real? No. It was planned.
We still ask that question today.
The main event was Teddy Hart versus Pentagon Jr. in the most indie match you can imagine. It's just a bunch of high spots for no reason, nothing but chaos. It's still kind of fun, but hey, it's MLW. And Teddy Hart got the win. So Teddy Hart's also the middleweight champion since MJF got injured and dropped the title. So we are 6 months into MLW. How do we feel about the promotion to date? What do you think, Rad? Think MLW is on the up and up, or do you think they're kind of still got room to improve? Loki's the champion. I know a lot of people don't like him as the champ.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Again, I haven't really been following the product, so it's not like if I've tuned in the last couple of weeks or months or anything like that. Mm-hmm. However, as per my exposure to MLW, which is pretty much just on social media or YouTube, Um, I'm not sure if they're on the way up, but I'm not gonna say that they're just gonna, become nothing. I just think they're kind of like remaining on a stagnant level of exposure, and quite possibly that's maybe where they will stay.
I
But
think so as well.
yeah, I mean, I really don't see them getting any more popular, but not losing any more fans anyway. I think if fans are actually tuning into MLW is because they actually like the product or the wrestler showcased. So that's where it'll just stay.
Yeah, I mean, I like their edgy kind of storylines they're going with. I mean, low-key stabbing people, it might be a bit much, but
Yeah.
I do like the faction that's been developed there, Promociones Dorado, headed by Zelina De La Renta. She's one of the best non-wrestlers I've seen in quite some time. I think
I'm familiar with her.
yeah, she's quite good. Low-key, despite me not liking him as champ, he does play a good heel at the top type character. Your opinion on Low-key might differ, but I think they've done a good job developing himself. Okay. I do like the format of the show. I do like the format where it starts off with a match, then you have a midpoint where there's a bunch of promo packages to emphasize storylines and whatnot. They might have some backstage stuff and people getting jumped and kind of deal. I love that stuff. And then they have your main event. Might have a third match in there every now and again to develop more talent. So I think their format's really good. But are they stagnant? I would agree with you, Red. They're missing something. Whether it's talent getting over, maybe their storylines aren't grabbing the crowd kind of deal. Mm-hmm. There's a number of things that could be improved upon for sure. So, alrighty. On to Impact. Oh, this is going to be a conversation. Oh boy. So Impact Homecoming, something I was quite excited for, Red, actually.
I remember, yeah.
I even thought about driving over to Nashville at the Asylum and going to this thing, but I'm glad I didn't.
I didn't watch the pay-per-view by any means, but I heard it was not anything compared to the last couple of them that they did, which were good, versus what they pulled off here. I know it was a lot of people described it to be a botch fest.
Yes, yeah, it was an unlucky botch fest, I would describe it as. Mm-hmm. So let's get the positives and some of the talking points here first.
Sure. I think there's one big positive coming out of it anyway.
Oh, sure. They're really pulling a nice reset here, I think, with the new TV deal in the US with Pursuit. It's also owned by Anthem. And they also officially announced their simulcasting on their Twitch channel, which is also awesome. Which I've been watching on Twitch because I don't have Pursuit, which is probably why they're on Twitch now. So that's good. They have a TV channel since Anthem owns them, and that's Anthem's channel. I think they'll get treated better on that channel, despite it being for a less audience. But Twitch is 100% a good, positive thing to have. So there's that. The show as a whole, I think it was harmless while it was a mess. It had a good old school early TNA 2002 vibe to it all, but at the same time, that's not really good enough because it felt like it was an underproduced indie show with very questionable booking and just okay to decent matches. There was one highlight match, but even then there always seemed to be something wrong with each match. Still. So here's a question. How do you feel about wrestling promotions that put out a weekly product in essentially having makeshift matches, aka tag matches or weak singles matches with weak stories on pay-per-views? So I'll give you a couple examples. The example here was the Willie Mack versus Sami Callihan match, which they just seemed to be starting a storyline, and it was a filler match. So I didn't agree with that. Wasn't engaged kind of deal. And you can argue I would say the other example is the Drew McIntyre Finn Balor match at TLC. What is your take on putting these kind of matches on the card, Rad? Especially when you have a weekly show.
Yeah, I think that's what a weekly show is for, but I can see why they're doing it. I feel as if maybe they don't have matches to fill the pay-per-view, which pretty much means they shouldn't be having a pay-per-view to begin with, if that's the case, or just simply shorten it, you know. But I can see why they're doing it, and I think it's just simply that maybe not enough guys in their roster to fill a pay-per-view. But either way, I totally agree. I think that any filler matches of that kind that really don't have any storyline around it, or if they're just starting, should not be on pay-per-view to begin with. The whole point of a pay-per-view since the beginning of wrestling time is that it's supposed to be the climax or the end of a story for that given month or quarter of the year. You know, we can pretty much see the climax of it all. You know, not really to start something unless you're going to end something and then reboot with something else right after. But not going in randomly, you know, putting two guys together and okay, now they'll be in a rivalry. Yeah, it's not the way booking 101 works. You know, I think we've been fans of the business for a while now to see that that's not going to work.
I agree, and that's kind of the point I wanted to make. So thank you, Rad. We are on the same page. So onto the main show. Ultimate X started off, and while the match was hot, the match prematurely ends with the belt falling off as Swan was swinging to it. The belt just kind of fell off into his lap, and he just kind of goes, ah, shit, and he drops and wins the title. So that sucked. But the match was cool. I mean, the crowd loved it, and then it just goes, ah, crap, are you kidding me with that?
Yeah.
There was a really good tag title match with LAX and the Lucha Bros, which is the team of Pentagon and Phoenix. Also very hot. But it also ended strange because the camera clearly showed Pentagon Jr. just kind of hanging out on the ramp, not rushing the ring to break up the final pin. He was just kind of there. So, like, oh, come on, guys. At least don't put the camera there. But the match was hot. It was cool. That was definitely the highlight of the show. Then you had Tessa Blanchard versus Taya Valkyrie with special guest referee Gail Kim. Did you catch the result of this match, Rad?
No, not the result. I did see some of the story leading up to it, but I'm really not aware of what went down, so go ahead and shoot.
Okay, so this was like an old WCW Nitro match.
Okay.
It was... The whole focus was Gail Kim versus Tessa Blanchard being leading to the very predictable Kim costing Blanchard the title. Taya looked, I thought, quite awful in this match. She was quite off pace, off beat, from bell to bell, essentially. It just became a mess, really. I mean, I get the booking that they were going for. I just think there was an obvious alternative rather than just having Blanchard just getting Gail Kim's face and Gail Kim giving her the eat defeat and then Taya pins her. I thought it was just pretty lazy. Especially if they're going to lead into Blanchard, Gail Kim, which is seemingly what they're going for. I think it would have been more interesting to have Gail Kim go for the title again to try and get it off Tessa. And then in the background, you could be building up someone like, oh, I don't know, Jordan Grace.
Yeah.
So, I didn't like this match at all. And Tessa Blanchard lost the title via nefarious means. I mean, it just made Taya look like a weak champion. It made Gail Kim look like a dick, and Tessa Blanchard have legit beef instead of being the cocky heel that she was.
Sure.
So, yeah. Just by describing it, it sounds like a WCW Nitro match, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. Something on Monday Nitro back in 2000. Sure does.
Yep. And then the main event. Woof. It was over 20 minutes. Should have ended at 15 to 18. Yeah, Johnny Cage. Oh,
I like that.
Oh, God.
I'm a Johnny Cage guy, by the way.
Brian Cage against Johnny Impact. Oh, my God. That was a slip of the tongue. That was funny. Okay, they have chemistry together from Lucha Underground, but man, it went too long, Rad. Once it passed that like 16-minute point, the guys just got super gassed. It was real sloppy. Then the finish happened. It's important to note that the dudes from Survivor, that Johnny Impact was, because he was on Survivor, they were ringside. This is how it went down at the end, Rad. Think about it. It's already been kind of a sloppy mess for the last like couple minutes. Right? Because they're real tired. They can't hit their moves right. They're off pace. It just looks bad. Well, then the guys from Survivor wanted to jump the rail, and then for like 2 minutes, the ref is just yelling at them, trying to keep them from jumping the rail. There's no security coming over or anything. It's just the ref going, no, you can't be, no, you can't do that. No, sit down. You guys are bad. And God, I did it again. Brian Cage gives Johnny Impact the drill claw, and he pins him for like a 30 count, essentially.
Jesus, okay.
Ref finally gets in the ring. They go for this funky, so Cage is on the inside of the ring, and he's propped up on the second rope. Johnny Impact does this. The idea was to do a parkour spin over him and do a sunset roll-up from that middle rope. Well, Johnny not only completely missed Cage, right? Mm-hmm. He also botched the roll-up. Cage accidentally slips out of the pin, and the ref just kind of goes, 1, 2, I guess that's 3. All right, Johnny retains. Hooray. Crowd booed the hell out of it. So not a good ending to your main event. Luckily, Killer Kross took out both Johnny and Taya to close out the show. He powerbombed Taya into the crowd, which was pretty cool. They kayfabed it where Taya suffered severe injuries from the deadly power bomb, so she's off the show. So now the question is, how do you feel about Johnny Impact as champion now as we continue into 2019 and the prospects of Impact into this new year?
I actually think it's pretty cool. I think it should have been done a while back, but either way, him being champion coming into the new year, mm-hmm. and having his wife Taya as the women's champion as well, that's really cool to see. I'm not really sure we've ever seen a married couple as champions. Sure, a lot of people will say
Triple H and Stephanie McMahon.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the time that they were champions, they were not married yet. So.
Oh. Yeah. No Vegas drive-through yet.
No, not yet. So either way, yeah, it's really cool to see that. So I'm okay with it. And as of right now, I think, and we've mentioned this before in the cast, because I think Impact Wrestling always had these plans for Johnny, but he really is the face of Impact Wrestling right now. As he's the guy. So I think him being champion is very fitting.
So they always say he's got the look of the champion, and this comes from the Austin Aries. And the whole idea of Austin Aries being the dick that he was to build up Johnny Impact as that legitimate champion who's never won the big one, and he finally did. I mean, it was a good moment at Bound for Glory, and Austin Aries did his job. He got Johnny over, right?
Sure.
Well, Johnny Impact can't do promos at all. He's very... he might as well have smoked a bunch of weed and be part of the Rascals, which is that new, that 70s show trio that's going on. He might as well be part of that, and he'd probably come off better, because then his promos would make sense. But until then, he's very boring. He doesn't come across as likable, I would say, especially with getting the Survivor guys involved. And people can't relate to him because he looks like the $1 million, kind of persona, right? I don't think that flows well into this new year, new age.
Right.
Does he belong at the top? I would agree he would, but to hold the title, I don't think so. And with that, we can get into the very first Impact on Pursuit and Twitch from yesterday, actually. So we're coming into this fresh. So the top guys are clearly going to be Johnny Impact, Brian Cage, Killer Kross, Eli Drake, and then you got guys like Pentagon and Phoenix in the wings. The X division, you have Callahan, Swan, Willie Mack, Matt Sydal, with plenty to step in. So this is a much better situation than what Impact was going into 2018 last year. Mm-hmm. Much better. You might remember us trying to figure out who the guys are going to be at the top. The roster's devastated. There's no one there. Everyone's getting out of their contracts.
I think they've managed throughout the year, have come to maybe a stable status. Does this mean a positive future? I don't know. It seems to me that every year Impact Wrestling is always looking for like a new channel to be featured on, or they're like on their last, strings, every Bound for
Mm-hmm.
Glory, always teasing that somebody's going to come and swoop them up, pick up their videotape library. It's always something. It's like they should have died a long time ago, but I am actually surprised that they are not and they still continue. The Impact Wrestling we're seeing today is definitely not the same TNA we saw, 10, 15 years ago. But either way, it is surprising. It is impressive that they're still around. But right now, I will give them that credibility that they're actually a stable organization versus a year ago that I think everything was just all over the place.
Yes, they're in a much more stable situation. They're on a channel that actually wants to invest in them for once. Is there a large audience? No, it's not as large as what they used to be on. But the difference is Anthem seems to care more. And now that they're on Twitch, they can expand their audience more there as well. And they have a stable roster for the first time in God knows how long. So those are the positives. The negatives are still kind of the stigma that's behind it, the stink of TNA, as a lot of people like throwing around. So with that, let's get into what happened on Impact, the fallout from Homecoming. Well, there's only 250 people in this really tiny gym or wherever they were at in the asylum. So it's coming across as they're back to 2002, 3, 4 era type stuff. They have a small roster of guys. They're all very indie. There's some standouts, and there's potential there. So that's the vibe I'm getting from it. And then you got the vibe of the bookers that are behind it with, Don Callis and company, that want to make Impact more edgy. The commentators were very adamant about, it's a new year, it's a new Impact, we got our guys, time to make this edgy. So, quick hot opening segment with pissed off Brian Cage, evil awesome Killer Cross, and lame Johnny Impact. Because this promo, Johnny Impact came out first, he cuts a real lame promo, the crowd was dead, and then Cage quickly comes out to put a stop to that nonsense. And the crowd was 100% behind Cage. Cage wants his title shot back because he had him down forever, and the guys from Survivor, blah 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 blah, as we went over. So this is your program going forward. Okay? And Killer Cross came out and cuts great promos. He's very articulate. His character is he likes to play the mind games. I love Killer Cross. The crowd loves Killer Cross. Brian Cage comes off as a badass, and he's good for it. And then you have Johnny Impact, who's just kind of that third wheel, and yet he's the champion. So it's not, in that aspect, you got 2/3 of the formula right, with the equation kind of coming to a hard stop at the end there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Johnny's just not getting over right now, which is a bad sign. It's kind of it made all of that work to Bound for Glory kind of mute within just a couple months. Seemingly that way. So he's been booked now for a no DQ match in the main event for Johnny versus Killer Cross. So I think that's a little too soon, but we'll see. And then Rich Swann comes out, new X Division champ. He actually cuts a pretty good promo. He's got ski goggles on for no reason. Couldn't really figure out that. But him and not Matt Stryker, Josh Matthews, do like this Mean Gene Okerlund style interview. Where Matthews is in the ring, he calls out the guy comes out, cuts a promo, he asks him some questions. Quite like that. How do you feel about those kind of promos in 2019?
I think they still work. They kind of bring legitimacy to any story or program going on. We obviously saw it with Mean Gene. That was a huge success in the start of it all. We've seen some interviewers come here and there. Some I've liked, some I haven't. Mm-hmm. But I think it could still work if it's properly executed. And the art of interviewing someone and doing a promo, I think, lacks in today's product, no matter what wrestling show you're doing.
Oh, sure.
So I think in 2019, if we saw a little bit more of that, I'm definitely a fan of it. I think sometimes it's necessary for build up. It makes great video packages. The interviewer comes in, has the wrestler state what's on their mind, and I think it works.
I think the interviewer needs a personality, a character. To me, Don Callis is a character. Josh Matthews,
sure.
I do like I do like the idea of the guy interviewing in the ring and kind of calling the guy out, and the wrestler gets to say his words. But Josh Matthews doesn't have enough character. You know, when he was with Matt Sydal, he was a character. It really reminded me of like the Bobby Heenan type character, you know, on commentary.
I totally agree with that. Otherwise, you're going to get a bland Adam Adomley or something, you know, and we don't want.
Well, it's almost like in WWE where you have nice face to look at white commentator 101, you know?
Right.
So Callahan actually comes out and offers Swan to join OVE, but then Willie Mack comes out and they have a match. So it's really lame. We got Callahan versus Mack yet again. So this really goes with both of our statements earlier, kind of why was this a pay-per-view match if you're just going to roll this same exact match out again. Mack rolls up Callahan this time. Callahan won at Homecoming, so now you got a case of 50-50 booking here. Just kind of doesn't, to me, this doesn't do much for any guys. The match was better than Homecoming, but hey. So that was definitely a low point, was kind of the booking behind this. And then, but there was a good match earlier with the Rascals and Lucha Bros. Good tag team match. So Impact has a very good tag team division going forward. It's very solid.
Cool.
Then we have the Scarlet Bordeaux segment, Rad.
Yeah.
Okay. So Scarlet Bordeaux teases she's going to do a strip show because it's going to celebrate their first night on Pursuit and being on Twitch, and she's going to give us a show, Rad. Don Callis is like having a heart attack on commentary. Oh my God, Scarlet Bordeaux's coming. Oh no.
Yeah, I think so is every fan in the building and watching at home.
Yeah, so
she has that effect.
Yeah. It's very it's edgy, right? So the Desi Hit Squad come out to ruin everyone's boner, and they cut just a horrible promo. The Desi Hit Squad is just awful to be on TV. I feel real bad because Gama Singh is he's a legend in Stampede Wrestling in Canada, the whole regional scene in that era, but Jesus Christ, this group is awful. Well, that's quickly solved because who comes out? Well, hey, get that air siren because Scott Steiner's coming out to advertise the Pursuit channel.
God.
He goes, you might let's see if I can do my best Scott Steiner impression. You might have noticed I came down with a limp in my leg because I was out hunting in Detroit, and you can see the hunting on the Pursuit channel. And then he says some other bullshit and beats up the Desi Hit Squad, and then Scarlet Bordeaux gets the mic, and she goes, well, if you just wanted a front row seat, all you had to do was ask. Scott Steiner sits down middle of the ring. She takes her robe off. She's in, a kinky little outfit. She does like 3 moves, kisses Steiner on the cheek, and then walks away. And that's it. That was it.
So there you go, the Big Papa Pump White Thunder segment.
Yeah. He even goes, I gotta follow her to the back. Holla if you hear me. I was like, oh my God.
Same old Scotty.
Yeah, Scott Steiner was pretty funny in this just because he didn't do much. He put both Desi Hit Squad members in the Steiner recliner, and then as soon as Scarlet Bordeaux gave him the chair, he's like, oh fuck this, I'm gonna sit down and watch a strip.
He's always easily seduced. Except it's funnier now because I think now he's coming off more as like an old man, so it's just like, yeah, it's not the same. Yeah, before 20 years ago it was like, cool, oh, Big Papa Pump, he gets all the chicks, but now it just looks funnier. So
yeah, I think I'm with you on that.
Entertaining.
I think that's why I was entertained, because he's now this old jacked up dude. Yeah. All right, and then we move on to Tessa Blanchard beats up a jobber. She uses Gail Kim's finishing move, Eat Defeat, to win. She says in the camera,
nice.
She says in the camera, I want Gail. So yeah, would not have had Tessa lose that match at Homecoming.
Okay, I like Tessa. She knows what she's doing.
Oh
she
yeah,
plays
I mean,
the role of a villain perfectly.
The program's good, but if there was a title on the line and Taya not in doing the Taya things, I think this would have come across even better.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we get to the main event. No DQ match. Johnny Impact versus Killer Cross. crowd is chanting "kill cross kill" because not one person cares about Johnny anymore.
Yeah, there you go. Interesting.
Yeah,
what you were just mentioning earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this match much more than her title match from a few months back, and the crowd ended up getting heavily on the side of the match as well, despite the hate of Johnny just in general. So to me, that further proves that Johnny doesn't need to be the champion to get over, and he doesn't come across as that kind of California douchebag persona that he seems to have along his aura. At least that's the way he comes across to me.
Right.
Yeah. Had an interesting finish as Moose interferes, pushed Johnny through a table. Killer Cross puts in the cross jacket win. The duo of Moose and Cross are still a thing. I like it. So a lot of ups and downs on Impact, but entertaining, I would say.
Entertaining and stable, regardless of what they got going on.
Yeah.
There's consistency here, not back then, when you had guys like, Alberto Del Rio, no showing events and whatnot. They just really couldn't rely on stuff like that. And I just think now they have more of a stable roster.
Yeah, the stable roster is definitely the big positive, and you can 100% tell how it's going to play into a factor later. They have their established top, they have their middle, they have their tags, they have their women's division. I think the women's division needs a little bit more work, but that's only because all of the talent in the world for women have essentially been snapped up by WWE, which sucks.
Oh yeah, they're all over the place now. You have NXT, the main roster, NXT UK. Back when they did the Mae Young Classic, so.
Yeah, and then you can't forget about Ring of Honor's attempt at a women's division where they're trying to sign. You have AEW now starting their own women's division with Britt Baker and Penelope Ford. So it's a great time to be a women's wrestler because you're getting snapped up everywhere. You're gonna have a job, it seems. You're gonna have a lot of work. So at least that's a good positive.
Another thing AEW is offering too is equal salary for the women as well.
So we didn't
mention that earlier.
Yeah, we didn't mention that. The idea behind that,
cool to see.
The idea behind that is for equal pay between men and women is your performance and your draw power. So think of Becky Lynch kind of being the draw of WWE right now. See, she would be getting the same as a top draw male. But then you got Lana, think of her where she's hardly on. She's just kind of a manager. She doesn't draw that much. She wouldn't be getting the same pay as... She'd be getting the same pay as like a male manager, so to say. So that's the idea behind that. I'm sure that is. Not everyone's going to get like $100,000 salary or something.
Right. Yeah, obviously it's based on your, credentials and what you can bring to the table. But it's another alternative and a good opportunity for women's wrestlers that are being signed to other places than WWE, obviously where the money is at. So I think AEW is the perfect fit for anybody looking for another option.
Yeah, and you can't forget Chris Jericho and Don Callis. Don Callis and Impact. They're really good friends. So we could be looking at a very good relationship between Impact and AEW.
That would be great for business on both parties. I think it would.
Impact has the roster.
Revive Impact. Yeah, it would revive Impact, but AEW can utilize that roster to fill up, weekly events or monthly pay-per-views, what have you. I think that would be really good for both parties.
I think it would be as well, because they don't have to look at it as direct competition. More along the line of you scratch our back, we'll scratch your situation, which is good. Yep. And speaking of good. Women's wrestling in Japan killed it the last few weeks to start off the new year. And so I said in 2018 one of the highlights was getting into Ice Ribbon, which is Manami Toyota's little makeshift promotion over in Japan. One of the most famous women's wrestlers of all time, at least from a Japanese perspective. Ice Ribbon 930 was Ribbon Mania. So it took place at the end of the year, but it wasn't on your YouTube page until the new year. So we saw two great matches that built off the 10th anniversary show from August last year, which we covered. This time, Risa Sera beat Hikaru Shida in what became essentially a TLC match. So you know where they got the idea from that. Very stiff, lots of spots involving piles of chairs, a Death Valley driver through chairs and a ladder, which was pretty nasty to see. Went 18 minutes, good stuff there. So now they're tied 1-1. There was a pretty emotional kind of promo, each one cut backstage between Sarah and Shida, kind of having very much mutual respect for each other. They both want to be at the top, but they got to take each other out kind of attitude. It's very interesting how Japanese women are not only booked, but kind of how their characters are, you know? Built off a lot of respect for the wrestling and industry.
Sure.
Yeah, it's very serious. That's a good way to put it. But the big main event was Tsukasa Fujimoto defending her title against the Queen of the Ring tournament winner, Maya Yukihi, the girl I fell in love with last year, Rad, if you remember that name.
Yeah, I kind of do.
And you might also remember this combination of Fujimoto and Yukihi being the third best women's match of 2018. Do you remember?
Vaguely.
Yeah. So there was an elimination tournament between the 10th Annie show and now, and that's where Maya got her title shot. This match, Rad, was even better than their August match.
Oh, wow, okay.
It went 2 minutes longer, stood at 23 minutes, just excellent move exchanges. It was stiff, it was smooth. Nobody was heavily bruised up at the end of this one. Because Maya at the end of the August show was just, she got the shit kicked out of her. Well, in this case, Maya finally wins the big one. A huge heartfelt promo at the end. And Tsukasa Fujimoto even cuts one in the back saying, you know, it's good for, you know, young new talent to step up to the challenge. I may have lost the title, but it's good for me to have more challenges and gives me motivation to stay at the top and want to be there. So kind of a Tanahashi type attitude there with Tsukasa Fujimoto. Mm-hmm. And Maya is just, she was just incredible in this match. She was pulling off all her good moves. Tsukasa had this really wild sequences where she would spin around Maya on occasion and hit just these moves I've never seen before. I definitely recommend hitting up Ice Ribbon's YouTube page and watching the highlights of this match. It's quite something to see.
Okay, will do. I'm actually Googling it now on YouTube.
Yeah. Every indie promotion out there pretty much has a YouTube channel, and they put matches up all the time, and at the very least highlights of kind of their events. If you can't find streams on Ice Ribbon or whatnot, or you don't want to pay for the events via the Japanese stage that they're at, you can go to their YouTube channel and see some of the stuff. It's quite something to see. And then another news coming out of Ice Ribbon, Misaki Ota won a big elimination match late last year and eliminated everybody. And then she also went to a 15-minute draw with Fujimoto a couple months ago. So she's probably the next contender to look out for, which I'm excited for. So, Rad, I ask you this. How do you feel about not just Maya, but kind of the newly built talent here to win the major title to start off a new year?
I think that's good. I mean, when you have a new year, that's pretty much your chance to reboot any product. We were just talking about reboots earlier. I think with a new champion, you pretty much accomplish that, and that kind of like, I guess, defines the year of you know what you're watching. This way, you know, maybe in the future you go back and you're like, oh yeah, 2019, I remember that year. That was when such and such was champion. You know, something like that. You know, so
right.
I think that's very good for marketing and the product.
Yeah, I agree. This is why I also thought Brian Cage should have won at Homecoming over.
I see your
Johnny Impact.
Okay.
Yeah,
that would make sense.
Yeah, you want to reboot. You want to get a new feel for the promotion. New champion is a good way to start. Someone that earned it, and we got two different examples here. We got Maya and Ice Ribbon, the new up and comer built person finally winning the big one. And then on Impact side, we have Brian Cage, who's basically been unbeatable since his debut, and then he loses at Impact the way he did. You know, there's a reason why the Impact fans booed that, and then the Ice Ribbon fans fucking lost their goddamn minds when Maya won finally, even though they love Tsukasa Fujimoto. So, Interesting stuff. I love Ice Ribbon. They got I wish it was easier to take in personally, but you know, it's like PWG. You get it when you can, kind of deal, you know. So on to Stardom. I make my notes here. Stardom is definitely something we're probably going to cover more on this podcast. Covering all their shows, and
I'm down for that.
It's the best women's promotion out there. It's the best highlight of women. I think it has the best conglomeration of talent and booking of the talent in the world. And yes, I do include WWE. I think WWE women are probably, I think their top are the best, but they don't book them the best. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because you still see like Lana wrestling and what have you.
Yeah.
But anyways, their Christmas show went up the first week of January, and we're covering that to their two Shinkiba shows. So kind of their New Year's Dash shows is a way to put it. So just some news here. Hazuki won the high-speed title, a title we don't get to see too much. She pulled a Brock Lesnar on a shooting star press.
Oh, did she really? Okay.
Yeah. Luckily, she immediately got up, and then she won the match. But
oh man.
Yeah, the crowd popped for the shooting star press, and then saw her land and went, "Oh no!"
Oh man, yeah, I'm pretty sure it looked pretty bad.
Yeah, I took a screenshot of it, and she just landed right on her neck. It was a bad fall. So she won that title. She cut a pretty cool promo afterwards, Red. She says, quote, Hazuki will paint Stardom the color, or no, I will paint Stardom the color of Hazuki in 2019. So she seems to be primed for a big push in the new year. Is Hazuki, which I'm quite excited for. That's a young talent on the up and up. And then Jungle Kiona had a great showing in a fatal 4-way, getting her back on track for a singles run. You remember Rad, her and her group John, the Jungle Girls.
Oh yeah.
They kind of had a falling out because they lost their titles, and Jungle Kiona was kind of on a losing streak, but not really. But she was definitely in a rut. She even had her own teammate basically talk shit to her. You know, go back to your singles shit because this tag team stuff's not working. Didn't say shit, but pretty much implied.
Yeah, pretty much implied.
So Jungle Kiona got the fatal 4-way win. That was cool to see. She's definitely one of my favorite people to watch in Stardom, and she really put a big impression on me in 2018. Momo and Utami Hayashishita, our Rookie of the Year last year, defended the tag belts.
Already making a name for herself.
Yeah, oh yeah, big time, and this is no exception. So she defends the tag belts here against star members Saki and Tam Nakano. It's good stuff. Some shit talk was made post-match as Momo said Stars is nothing without Mayu Iwatani, and Tam Nakano took a real negative to that. She was insulted. But Tam Nakano's been like a pushover in Stardom for about the last 8 months. She got like one win in the 5-star Grand Prix, aka the G1. You want to compare? Mm-hmm. So this was kind of the building of a Momo Tam Nakano feud for the white belt that Momo has, and Tam Nakano is kind of coming off as that wrestler that's kind of in a rut and needs a win, and going up against someone like the champion Momo here could get her back on. At least get her a good babyface little underdog run. So that was the hint there. So then here's something that I was not expecting watching the show, Red, and I highly hope you check this out. There's a new wrestler, newly trained, called Sadie Gibbs out of the UK.
Sadie Gibbs, and she's in Stardom right now?
She's been working Stardom. She's also in Pro Wrestling Eve, because Pro Wrestling Eve, with 2019 happening, all of their talent are signed with NXT UK, right? So now they can't work in Eve anymore, pretty much. Okay, so Eve introduced all these new people to finish out 2018, and Sadie Gibbs was one of them. She's been training the last couple years. Well, she showed up in Stardom for the first time, and what does she do? She pulls off a Osprey-like back handspring moonsault over the top rope to the outside.
Oh,
just in
wow,
this tag match, and I just went, "What the fuck was that?" Yeah. Oh my god, she left a huge impression on me. There was even a battle royal in which Jamie Hayter was kind of talking shit to her, and they were egging her on. And how does she eliminate herself? She does this back handspring moonsault. The crowd just goes nuts for her, just doing this one move. Do you remember when Ember Moon first debuted in NXT and she pulled off the Eclipse and everyone just like lost their mind? Because it was just so cool. It was like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So Sadie Gibbs is a name
to check out. Okay.
She's a name to look out for. Some fun stuff happened as well, where Jamie Hayter, you know, my girl, my newly found girl, she turned heel in Stardom, Rad.
Oh wow, okay.
During that same tag match, I think it was the same one, she cost her team the win and joined Oedo Tai, Kagetsu's group, the kind of rambunctious heels of Stardom. So she goes, every Stardom show I come on, Oedo Tai is always at the top. They always win. You guys have fun. I want in. And then Kagetsu's like, hell yeah, come join us.
You know, and right now I'm actually, I'm sorry, going back to Sadie Gibbs, I just saw that move that she did. She like, you know, flipped all over the place and just right to the outside onto the women. Holy cow.
It's awesome, right?
Yeah.
And then to finish off the Shinkiba shows, we got some rivalries going forward. Hazuki talking shit to Starlight Kid, the very adorable luchadora type character in Stardom. So the high-speed belt will be those two going forward to the Osaka show later this month. Starlight Kid lost her Rising Stars belt, so that's kind of your rookie belt in Stardom, to Utami. So Utami's a double champion now, and we're only 2 weeks into 2019.
Wow, and yeah, it's like so quick.
Yeah, debuts 5-star Grand Prix. She wins the tag titles after the G1 version of the tag team tournament, and now she's the rookie champion. And Utami even cut a promo saying she's going for all the gold in 2019. So we got Hazuki saying she's going to paint the color of her, and then we got Utami saying she's going to win all the gold. So the young talent is rising in Stardom.
It's almost like a new era.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that, especially with Kairi and Io Shirai leaving. That's big. There's rumors of Mayu Iwatani possibly signing somewhere else. I know AEW met with her. I don't think she'll sign with AEW, but working out a deal at least with kind of Ring of Honor. She has a 3-year visa with Ring of Honor, so we might see Mayu get more time in Ring of Honor before AEW, but it's definitely something to note because she wasn't in the Rising Stars Battle Royal, or not Rising Stars, the New Year's Battle Royal, in which we saw Starlight Kid actually win. So right after she lost her title, she eliminated Utami to and a couple other people to essentially get her win back and make her look strong going into her going for a belt that's above the rookie belt now. So pretty cool stuff. And then more Momo won't leave Tom Nakano alone, constantly putting her down. It's a good little redemption babyface character challenge for the white belt. I like it. I like all this stuff going forward in Stardom. A lot of stories going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, new era, as you said, Rad.
Yeah, new era.
It's if you're looking to get into Stardom, this would be the right time for sure. New faces, new pushes. It seems Kagetsu might be losing that red belt sooner rather than later. The hint is, no, Jungle Kiona and Kagetsu are going at it one more time. I'm very curious to see if Jungle Kiona will win that title. So we have a lot of rivalries to kickstart the year. It's really cool. It's very intriguing. But again, it's serious, so it's not for everybody, but the talent is there. Okay. So I gotta make my notes for Stardom. Am I convincing you to watch Stardom yet, Red?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's something that I need to to work on maybe getting a subscription for them as well.
It's like $4 or $5 a month. It's not expensive.
Yeah, it's very cheap.
Yeah. And you can pick and choose the matches, and they have little funny promos before each match for all the people. It's usually a lot of Japanese, we're going to win this match, I hope to get a win back kind of thing, but hey. When you got people like Kagetsu just being like, she cut some random stuff like, I'm going to beat you in a minute, here's this cup ramen, because that's how long it takes to cook it, and she hands it to an audience member.
Nice.
Time this. That's funny. All right. I think it's time for another drop, so we can time this sucker. And Rad, if you need to take a break, now would be the time.
Okay, sounds good. Let me go and get another break. I mean, get another drink. I'll be right back.
Cool. Intermission. Oh.
All right.
Okay. Play the drop right fast. Alrighty. We are back from intermission. We're ready to talk some WXW, my favorite promotion on this planet today.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's not even close, it's easy. I'm a mark for it. I'll say it. Oh god. I hope you chime in more on this one, Rad, because this was a fun few weeks for WXW. They had their 18th anniversary show at the end of December. Got to watch it in the first week of January. So, packed to the walls with 1,100 people. Awesome to see. It's a new Oberhausen record, I believe, that they were able to do. So that's a good sign for German wrestling.
Yes, it is.
Announced right away that David Starr suffered an injury and now there will be a mystery opponent for Absolute Andy's WXW Unified title. So that's kind of bad news there. Also, more bad news, Marius Al-Ani, the Shotgun champion, so their mid-card title, he suffered a shoulder injury, so there's no Shotgun title match either. So both champions, outside the tag champions, are injured to announce the start of the show. Not good news, right? Most companies would shit the bed with lazy booking on how they would handle this. Well, I can't wait to get there, Rad. How do you think they booked this without looking at the agenda? Unless you already have and you spoiled yourself.
Kind of glanced through it already. So.
Okay. Well, then never mind.
But definitely looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it.
Yeah. I know the thing that comes to mind immediately was we got AJ Styles versus Finn Balor in a makeshift singles match, which was a good match, but not worth anything. No story behind it. It was just a match, right? Mm-hmm. Well, somehow WXW was able to put a good story behind it. So, show starts with the tag team title gauntlet match. Turned into an all Rise versus Rise storyline with new Rise and old Rise. Still going on. Good stuff. Crown pins Monster Consulting. Rise pins the Crown. JFK, the champs, come out third. Al-Ani makes his appearance with the shoulder injury to the ring, and he hits a member of JFK, Jay Skillett, with the brass knucks to make Rise get the DQ. So he hit the other dude, so the team they're feuding with would lose via DQ. I thought that was that's good booking to me. You don't see that a lot, do you, Red? Usually just see guys like beat each other up and whatever. Yeah, so that was brilliant. Rise was super pissed off, but the team New Rise came out last after a little more shenanigans and more brass knucks from Tarkan Aslan. We got new tag champs. The crowd goes boo hard.
Oh, really?
They hated New Rise winning the title the way they did. It made the heel team JFK. They like looked at each other, they looked at Rise, and they're like, "What the fuck, man?" So JFK coming off strong despite them losing. Bouncer and Kiev of Old Rise comes out post match to get revenge. They go for a beatdown and they call for a Käfigschlacht at Back to the Roots. It means cage match in German.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, good story stuff. The match was underwhelming mostly, but the stories were being told were interesting. Match went about 22 minutes. We got Doug Williams being inducted into the WXW Hall of Fame. It went way too long. They were clearly filling time with the missing match on the card now, and they didn't feel like putting in a makeshift match to kind of bore the crowd, but hey, whatever. Good to see Doug Williams in the Hall of Fame for German wrestling. Then German UFC fighter Nick Hein comes out and being introduced as the special enforcer kind of situation for the title, the Absolute Andy title match. This guy got heavy boos from the crowd. They fucking hate him, and I don't know why. I think it's because they immediately like associate UFC fighter and wrestling as like Brock Lesnar, so they're like, fuck this guy.
Yeah, they don't have anything to do with that.
Oh yeah, and he's a very boring promo. He comes off as just this like regular guy who's just this UFC dude, happens to be this UFC dude. Crowd hates him like beyond reason. It's quite funny. So this is where we get to the title match now. Deemed by the events of double injury, the WXW Board of Directors have given an upgrade to Lucky Kid's shotgun title shot. Now he is to face Absolute Andy for the WXW title, as Andy must defend. Crowd goes crazy, 100% behind Lucky Kid. And you know me, I love Lucky Kid.
Right.
Yeah. Match went 25 minutes and it had everything. It was a good match. It reminded me so heavily of something out of the 90s in WCW.
Oh, cool. Okay.
You would love this match, Rad.
Yeah.
It had all Ani interference, Andy's foot under the rope, with Lucky Kid like overcoming the odds, John Cena style. The special enforcer Dick Hine, as I'm gonna call him, reverses the decision to have the heel. So the match gets restarted. Andy dick kicks Lucky Kid because everyone thinks Lucky Kid's the champ. Even WXW themselves put out on Twitter that Lucky Kid had won the title, and I had people spoil the match for me. So I'm like, what the fuck happened? Well, WXW pulled one on their own social media because when I watched the match and then it got restarted, I'm like, what the fuck's happening? I got swerved on social media, Rad.
Okay.
So match gets restarted. Absolute Andy kicks Lucky Kid in the dick. F5 Dominator wins. Nick Hine reluctantly hands the title to Absolute Andy, and people booed Absolute Andy winning hard, right? Because the huge babyface Lucky Kid, the up and comer, had won the title, but now it was taken away from him. And then as soon as Nick Hine got in the ring, all of a sudden everyone's hate for Absolute Andy just disappeared.
Suddenly satisfied.
The dude who has been heavily booed since his run in March last year, winning 16 karat gold, immediately becomes a babyface when up against this UFC fighter. It's quite funny.
Oh man. Because
to finish it off, Andy kicks Nick Hine in the dick and gets this huge ovation from the crowd. So it's the opposite of what WXW wanted, you know?
Right.
So then Ilya Dragunov comes on the screen and he cuts a promo in Dragunov style, and then he goes, you keep winning one over, and then at Back to the Roots we will have a kayfabe Schlacht. If you couldn't tell, if you couldn't tell, Back to the Roots is kind of think of Hell in a Cell, but it's cage match. Everything's kind of focused around a cage match. So poor Lucky Kid, but hey, Andy's still a dick, right?
Right.
So what is your thoughts on this guy constantly retaining the title via these dick kick shenanigans?
Well, if he's trying to play the role of a heel, which I would assume is the case here.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, I would say by all means. I mean, hey, it's part of what he's doing. So if it gets the fans to hate on him for the right reasons, I say by all means go for it.
Yeah. Well, good stuff. I definitely highly recommend, Rad, you seek out this main event, or it wasn't even the main event. It was the co-main event, this match. Like I said, it's very 90s WCW booking-esque, and it worked.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what the plan here is with the UFC fighter Nick Hine going forward. The crowd definitely hates him. I did mention even Andy got cheers after punting him in the dick. So Nick Hine was announced as the special guest ref for the kayfabe Schlacht between Dragunov and Andy. So my hope is we don't get a Taya, Valkyrie, Tessa Blanchard with Gail Kim situation.
Oh, okay.
That would really blow in my mind, but who knows? WXW hasn't let me down yet in their booking. What are your thoughts about bringing in this UFC fighter into the promotion?
If that's what he wants to do, and if it brings more awareness to the product, go for it. It's just that I think right now we live in a time of age. There's a lot of indie wrestling marks that might not accept that, going back to what you just mentioned earlier about how we all just see MMA guys as another Brock Lesnar.
Right.
So they're just not wanting to have any of it. It's even happening to Ronda Rousey, and that's unfortunate for her, but it is what it is. And I think wrestling fans despise the MMA scene crossing over to our side.
I'll give you an example of who's an MMA UFC guy who's working, and that's an MLW with Filthy Tom Lawler. And
okay.
I think it has a lot to do with how they're booking him. And this is what MLW is doing very right. They're making him a UFC fighter, right? A legit badass, but he has to work for everything instead of just he's put at the top kind of deal. And he even has this little UFC group where it's called Team Filthy, because UFC always has their like band of minions kind of deal.
Sure.
So that's what they're doing in MLW. So I'm very curious to see if if WXW goes that route with the Nick Hine, or he's just kind of this one-off special guest referee kind of situation and something to get kind of in the news in Germany. We'll see. I have my reservations about it, but hey, if the crowd loves this UFC guy, watching him get kicked in the dick all the time, then hey, more power to him, I guess. The main event of 18th Annie was British Strong Style, Tyler Bate, Pete Dunne, and Trent Seven versus Ringkampf with the returning Axel Dieter Jr. teaming with the rest of Ringkampf, Walter, and Timothy Thatcher. So this was a 30-minute match, and they tore the fucking house down.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. It had your typical technical start. You know, WXW's in the smaller ring, so they got to work with what they got. So that catch style really works, and the crowd knows it. Lots of back and forth. Dieter Jr., you could tell, was kind of out of his element. He hasn't wrestled like this in a long time, being kind of in purgatory of NXT with no plan for him over the last like year and a half. So he's just kind of getting his bearings back. But he was super over. The crowd fucking loved him. At one point, he did his WWE 9 thing, where he throws his finger across the air and he goes 9 when he reverses something, and the crowd just kind of go, they kind of go, oh god, because they know that's a WWE thing now. Yeah, it didn't get over. Like, oh yeah, a German saying 9. Oh, how funny, right? So that didn't get over. He only did it the one time. He usually does it like multiple times during a match. Like
not this time.
Not this time. He's like, okay, that didn't work. I won't do that again. Surprisingly enough, Thatcher used his new kind of pin finisher on Trent Seven for the win. So Trent Seven took the pinfall. Ringkampf wins. Post-match, Dieter announced his entry into the 16-carat tournament come March. Fuck yeah, the crowd went insane. So Dieter will be back in WXW going forward. He seems to have a more lax NXT UK contract than others. Great to see. Good show. A little long in the middle. Kind of, you know, they were missing the match, but title match was booked very entertainingly, and the main event delivered on all fronts. I like the show, Rad. Big surprise, right? All right. So, on to Road to Back to the Roots, because the weekly show Shotgun is no longer a thing now that Christian Michael Jacobi is he stepped away. That was his brainchild. It was just a lot of work to take on for a small indie promotion doing a weekly show.
Okay.
So now they're doing the New Japan type thing where it's a Road to show. So this is where they're going to hype up a lot of the rivalries and do backstage promos and have kind of makeshift tag matches and what have you to hype up the events for the upcoming pay-per-view. And so far it's been hit or miss in a lot of the matches and segments, but Road to Back to the Roots was excellent. I like this more than the 18th Annie show. I like this more than their last couple pay-per-views as a whole. This was great. If you want to get into WXW for the first time, watching Back to the Roots is where you start for 2019. Like, this is where you come in. You watch Back to the Roots, you're all set with storylines and matches going forward and rivalries. You're good. Like, this is perfect. So what I'm getting at is there was so much storytelling there that we're just going to focus on that. I will mention a match every now and again, but I won't go into the match because the stories were just killer on this show, Rad. Absolute Andy was killer and had hot fire promos all night. There was like 4 segments with the guy, right? And they were all different. I don't know I don't know how he's doing it, but he has just been great the last like 6 to 8 months. And all of his promos fit his character on top of that. He's the cocky champ, he's the heel champ, and he's the scared champ. He does all 3.
What he's doing is really working then.
It's really working. So let me just run down like what he was saying, and then you can tell me your thoughts.
Okay.
He's not washed up. He's only 27. He has much more to give. By the way, he's in his mid to late 30s.
Wow.
He got a phone call on Christmas Day after he defended the title from some Greek gods like Zeus to join him on Mount Olympus. To join them.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Tommy Geeson, the announcer, kind of the Mean Gene announcer backstage, interviews Andy and asks about UFC fighter Nick Hein and Ilya. And Andy then gets frantic and says Hein doesn't belong in the wrestling ring, and Ilya doesn't deserve another title shot. So there's your thing. And his last one was Andy was backstage with headphones on, having his WXW title in his arms, and he's staring at it. He just keeps repeating "I am the champion" over and over again, like a self-help tape. And then FYI, it was just himself saying in the tape. It was just himself in the tape saying the same thing over and over again on an MP3.
On repeat.
Because David Starr shows up and talks some shit, and he's like, "That's just you saying I am the champion in the tape."
That's good stuff.
And David Starr informs him, the WXW Board of Directors have stipulated for the London show after Back to the Roots, the winner of the Käfig Schlacht, I love saying that if you haven't noticed, will face David Starr.
Pronounce it so well.
Well, I do speak German, so.
Yeah.
Since he missed the 18th Annie shot due to injury. So fair enough. Cool stuff. We have stakes involved, right?
Yeah, obviously there's build up there now.
Yeah. So that was all absolute Andy. I fucking loved him. He was brilliant in the month of January to start off. Avalanche, my boy, part of Monster Consulting. Even Travis Hibiki TMD loves the guy because he's a kind of a callback to the natural disasters, with earthquake and typhoon. He's very much you can tell. He continues having trouble with keeping Monster Consulting together because his partner had a serious neck injury. We don't know when he's going to be back, so he's been looking for tag partners. Well, he goes up to Emil Satochi. He was sad he didn't win the tag titles. They've had problems with Jurn Simmons and the Crown. But Emil Satochi, the veteran of WXW, a guy we don't get to see too often, really. He's just kind of in this backstage role all the time. Satochi has his arms crossed. He's up against the wall, and he just goes, "I'm fed up with losing. I was tired of losing with Dragon last year. He's tired of his friends letting him down. He's tired of losing matches, his colleagues, getting all these contracts." He's kind of referencing Walter to NXT and Dragunov getting all the other Euro dates outside of WXW. So we could be looking at an Emil heel turn soon, which would be really cool to see. I'd like to know where he goes with that. Maybe he joins Rise. Who knows?
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And then Avalanche then kind of goes, well, I guess I'll just fucking do it myself. So we could, in this case, then we could be looking at an Avalanche singles run, which I'd be totally for. So then cut to Jurn Simmons claiming he's still sick because he missed a house show apparently, and goads Avalanche into an impromptu handicap match. Because Avalanche can't keep his cool. He's crazy. But surprisingly enough, Avalanche wins the handicap match, but then immediately gets beat down by Jurn Simmons. And then Jurn goes, "Oh, it's a miracle. I'm okay." Very WCW heel type stuff, right? And so Jurn beats Avalanche in a singles match right after. And but then Jurn takes all the credit, and this really irks Alexander James, his fellow Crown tag team partner, the wrong way. So Alexander James just goes, "Well, fuck. Well, then I'm going back to the States and leaving you all on your own." So we get Avalanche versus Jurn for Back to the Roots set, kind of culminating the rivalry of Monster Consulting and the Crown in a singles match. So pretty cool there.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Continuity. And everybody looks strong. Avalanche wins a handicap match, and then Jurn being the chicken heel, being the big guy, and he wins all the time. There was a really funny segment, very short, of Melanie Gray just losing her fucking shit backstage. She's screaming, she's pushing dudes around. She randomly finds Toni Storm and beats the shit out of her and then runs away.
Oh, damn.
So Toni Storm gets super pissed, and she tells backstage interviewer Geeson that she's finally had it with Melanie Gray because Melanie's crazy. So at Back to the Roots, they're gonna have a loser leaves town match. I think we know where this is going, Rad. Tony Storm's gonna lose and leave WXW.
Oh no, yeah. Oh, that sucks. But well, I don't know. I mean, she's obviously onto bigger and better things. I'm glad you brought up Tony Storm because with the recent controversy, we really don't know what the future
Oh, sure, yeah.
holds for her.
The social media thing.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. Very sad to hear about her because she has such a promising future. But I know how much of a fan of Tony Storm you are, and you've even exposed me to some of her work in WXW. So the fact that she's no longer going to be there, that's unfortunate. But hey, I mean, where are we going to see her? Is she already going to be, I guess, dedicated to a single promotion now, or WWE with the UK thing they got going on? Or?
I think she's on one of those special upper echelon tier 1 NXT UK contracts where she's only going to work NXT UK. I think she's going to be the face of the women's division there going forward. So yeah, I'm sad to see her sad to see her leave WXW. She's been such an intricate part of just the whole European women's indie scene in general. There's also an emotional video out online where the owner of Pro Wrestling Eve cut a hell of a promo thanking Tony Storm for her work within just the European indie scene and how she's helped built women's wrestling, even though she's only 23. It's pretty crazy. So then more story stuff. I love Tony Storm. It's gonna be sad to see her leave, but hey,
absolutely,
life will go on. Melanie Gray losing her shit was quite funny. A lot of screaming. Next, Timothy Thatcher was teaching Fight Muller kind of a hold or two, and I burst out laughing as Thatcher tried to tell Fight Muller how to focus on a shoulder. You know, like David Starr's got a hurt shoulder right now. And then, of course, David Starr was in the room. And Starr's like, hey, I'm right here. And he goes, and then Thatcher just kind of looks at him. So it leads to a challenge at Back to the Roots, Starr versus Thatcher. So this is kind of a thought here I had, Rad. Starr has the title match in London, right? Thatcher's on a winning streak in WXW recently, with getting the pin at 18th Annie against British Strong Style and pinning Walter in the event before that. So whether Starr wins or not at Back to the Roots, I don't think matters because he has his title shot. But if Thatcher wins, I think he's in line for #1 contender.
Ah, okay. So here comes the big push.
I think this is a push for Thatcher. I think WXW is trying to push as many stars as they can, and Thatcher's very over with the crowd. And so is David Starr. So I think we got kind of main event caliber people here going forward. They got a plan. How much are you familiar with Thatcher's work besides just kind of listening to me prattle on the podcast?
Yeah, pretty much on the podcast. I don't think I've really seen any of his work per se, at least not a new show or anything live for that matter. It's usually anything that happens, oh, check this out, clip or whatever.
Right.
But not like a full match per se.
I'm sure you could find a Drew Gulak, Timothy Thatcher Evolve match online somewhere. That would be something I would recommend. Yeah. Thatcher, I believe, was like Evolve champion for a year or something. He helped build that promotion. Speaking of Evolve, right fast, that promotion's done. It's like NXT training ground now.
Yep,
it's,
NXT to NXT.
It's I'm very sad because I liked Evolve. Oh well. Watch other promotions, I guess, now. So, more story. This is funny stuff right here, Rad, I'm getting into. Bobby Guns is having a major confidence crisis. He won. So if you remember last August, he won Shortcut to the Top, WXW's Rumble, right? He was just coming off his amazing Shotgun title run, his mid card run. And everyone in the chat, welcome. I see you guys talking in the chat. Cool. But
awesome. Welcome, guys.
Yeah. Ever since he won that Rumble, he hasn't won a match. and I didn't even notice it because he lost to Ilya, right, for the interim title. Then he lost to Andy, losing his shot at the title. And now he's lost to Shigeru Ire twice, including the match here on Road to Back to the Roots. So he's losing his goddamn mind backstage. He's having like hardcore confidence issues. His brother Vinny is like telling him, no, come on, man, you'll get by this. You know, it's no big deal. You just got to get a win back. You know, and then Bobby Guns like loses his mind. He's telling him to fuck off. He's slamming doors. He's kind of legit mad. And Bobby Guns specifically says at one time, he's sick of being out wrestled by the Japanese style. And so Guns and Ire kind of looks at him in the eye and puts up 3 fingers. So they're gonna go at it a third time for the sake of Bobby Guns' confidence at Back to the Roots. So we're getting a third match. Sure. So what I take away, I'm curious to what you take away from this whole losing streak that Guns is seemingly on to the main eventers, and now Ire losing twice. What do you take away from this? Because he seemed to be in a huge push, right?
Yeah, suddenly, at least even when I was exposed to the product, that's at least what I saw. It's interesting now that that's no longer the case. I don't know. I'm even afraid to say that. Is he stuck at just being on this losing streak? Or, you know, obviously they're booking him this way for a reason. And I don't know, maybe if it's some kind of build-up or character growth, but you're more in tune with the story itself, so I really don't know what do they have going on for him right now.
So you're worried that he might be stuck in the mid-card.
Right.
They're not confident he can handle main event. And
not
stuff.
that they're not confident. I just think maybe there's no room for him in the main event at this point.
Okay. Well, the King of Smoke style, I think, is definitely the future of WXW, barring, of course, WWE doesn't fucking snap him up.
Yeah.
But what I take away from this is Guns wasn't versatile enough as a wrestler to beat Absolute Andy and Ilya Dragunov. So Andy's got the smarts, he kept outsmarting him. Ilya was just stronger and more energetic. So I think he wasn't versatile enough. So once he figures out how to beat Ire, a Japanese-style wrestler, he will not only have his mojo back, but he'll also be a stronger, better wrestler because now he can combat a different style. I think that's the story being told here. I might be overthinking it too. As I do. But hey, it could be the case. He could break out a new move to beat Ire, and that, you know, that'll be I've bettered the Japanese style. I've bettered this guy who's beaten me twice kind of deal. They're making wins matter, basically, is what I'm looking at it, which I quite like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And finally, some last little promos are Walter inviting Fight Muller to a tag match and joining up with Ring Comp finally, officially. And they're going to take on JFK. Surely a tag title #1 contenders match, I would think. So hey, there's a push for Fight Muller. Not a huge push, but now he's in a group that matches his style, and with Walter probably leaving now on a much bigger basis, Ring Comp has a hole to fill, and I think Fight Muller fills it quite well, so that's good. And then Andy and Al Ani take the piss out of each other before their match against Ilya and Star in the main event. So Andy's making old tag team jabs. They used to be called A4. While Al Ani says, "Piss off, I'm with Rise now." He puts the finger up. This promo between each other led perfectly into their tag match. So the main event was the temporary reunited A4 versus Unbesiegt Star. Because Ilya Dragunov's nickname's Unbesiegt Bar, and then you got David Starr, so they combined it. Unbesiegt Star. It's quite cool. Yeah. This one, go watch it. I love the continuity of Al Ani and Andy fucking with each other at the beginning, so Ilya and Star basically beat the hell out of them. So that's continuity of their rivalry from last year in 2018. Because you remember Andy just kept fucking over Alani. He was the one that turned on him in the tag. Yeah. So they didn't just forget about it. They kept tricking each other to get the shit kicked out of each other by Star and Ilya for a good chunk of the beginning, and then eventually they started working together out of spite because they were tired of getting beaten up.
Oh man.
So they're like, all right, fine. So they reluctantly teamed together. Take Dean Ambrose and Drew McIntyre just being on the same team all of a sudden, and then they just get along because they're two heels now. That drives me nuts when they were in a feud for like 4 months last year, and it's just happened not too long ago.
Yeah.
They didn't do that here. There was continuity. I quite like that. It's good touch. Makes you care. So the Back to the Roots card looks very strong. Rise versus Rise is in a cage match, and all the belts are on the line. Tag belt and the shotgun title. So if Old Rise wins, they're all new champions.
Okay.
So that's really cool. So great show. The best Road to Shun done to date easily. The main event was a banger. It was... I'm saying this now. It was better than anything I just watched on NXT UK TakeOver. This main event at Back to the Roots. Or Road to Back to the Roots. That's a little hint for the next podcast episode.
There you go.
So that was WXW. I'm excited for the next pay-per-view event, the first one of 2019.
Yeah, a lot of stuff has gone down.
So much story. Every match matters. Every match has stakes involved in some way or another. It's really cool stuff. They're doing a really good job to start out the new year. Alrighty. That brings us into Progress, which has a lot less to talk about. But it was a really good show. It was their Chapter 82 unboxing live. And what they do here is no wrestlers or matches are announced prior, so they're all surprises. Okay, Red?
Okay.
And this is just basically, I'll go down and just read it off. It's not a lot to break down other than what it is. So there was a funny opener between Trent Seven defending his Atlas title, their upper mid-card title, I guess as you can call it, against Los Santos. It was a comedy match. They had finger guns. Funny spot where Trent catches the finger gun and he points it at the crowd, and all the crowd duck like a reverse wave.
Oh wow.
It was really funny. The crowd loved it. Jordan Grace beat Ginny to become the new women's champ. Match was okay, I guess. Marcel Bartel, aka Axel Dieter Jr., makes his return to Progress in like 80 chapters to face Eddie Dennis, but he lost. So I was sad to see that. Dennis is clearly being made into the next contender. On the other end, there was a fun 6-way battle with Chris Ridgway coming on top, with a lot of stars mixed in that match. Chris Ridgway seems to be the star in the making on the UK indie scene, because he even had a good match over in RPW at Cockpit 36 versus MK McKinnon. That's just a little side note. Aussie Open lose the tag titles to the returning tag team formation of the Swords of Essex. Does that name sound familiar, Rad?
I'm not sure if it does.
Do you remember WCPW before they became Defiant, and it was Will Ospreay and his little group with B. Priestley?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I remember that.
They have reformed now in Progress and won the tag belts.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Fun, fast-paced match. Heel Ospreay's great. It's a cool story how Robinson was the one that helped Ospreay beat Havoc at Chapter 75, and then in Ospreay's first match back to Progress since then is here, so big pop, big win, continuity. I do wish the stories were told better in Progress, you know, quicker, a little bit more to it, like in WXW, but hey, it's simple, like Ring of Honor to an extent, so I guess I can't fault it. I would just like to see a little bit more in that. But that match was really good. The main event was fucking awesome. It's one of the best of the year, even better than a lot of the Wrestle Kingdom matches. It was posted as the end of the era to indie British wrestling, as Pete Dunne faced off against Tyler Bate. And they went 34 minutes, 12 minutes of comedy style, aka I know you very well routine, which was it was quite cool. Like they kept trying each other's moves and they kept like slipping out of it or not falling for it, and
that's pretty cool.
And then all of a sudden it gets,
they always do that standstill for the claps.
Yeah. And then it gets super serious out of nowhere when Pete Dunne essentially like flips on a dime to be his bruiserweight. And but the cool thing was that I know you well routine stayed throughout the entire match, just without the comedy behind it. So like for example, Tyler Bate kept going for the what does he call it? The bop and bip, or the bip and bop, or I don't know what it's where he throws up the right arm in the air. The guy looks up and then he punches him with the other arm.
Oh yes, that's right.
So he kept doing that, and then he kept trying to do it, and then Pete Dunne kept just at one point he just straight up punched him in the face instead of looking.
Yeah.
So it was like that. Match was excellent. Great sequence near the end where after both guys had hit all of their key moves and kicked out of each other's finishers, they both tried to hit each other's finisher, but it was reversed. And then the match ends with Dunne tapping out Tyler Bate with his like arm bar and then breaking the fingers thing that he busted out at Wembley last year. So good send off for the two. End of an era. Yeah. They won't be back in Progress for a long time. So Unboxing Live, excellent, good way to end the year and start the year for Progress. Looking forward to more. But that was Progress, Red. That was the indie scene. Whew.
Good stuff. A lot of stuff. You told me it was going to be a long episode. Wow, just so many things have been happening. I haven't been able to keep up with all of it.
Well, if you pay attention to Red Leaf Retrocast, Apple, and JD on Twitter, I posted a calendar of all the shit that I've just been watching on weekends and stuff. It's just
no WWE fit in there.
Well, it's just the two takeovers and the Rumble. That's it. Just anything WWE related is just axed. Not watching it, and it's all replaced with indie stuff. February's looking a lot more doable, a lot more shorter. I'm very happy with that. Oh boy. Okay, time to finally talk Wrestle Kingdom, and I'm going to not play a drop for once. We can just go right into it.
Oh boy.
And you watched Wrestle Kingdom?
Yes, I did. I did not watch the whole event because unfortunately I worked, so I couldn't see it live. But I did catch pretty much
blasphemous
the main events of the show while I was at work. So yeah, go ahead and take it away, and I'll chime in with the ones I did catch up on.
All right, Wrestle Kingdom 13, the culmination of a year-long story in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So I want to get your total thoughts on what you saw. I'll say mine first. A great show overall, despite the undercard matches being cut short. That was clearly something noticeable. There was clearly a time choice to stick under their set amount of time. Like, they weren't going to go over this mark. To me, it was really sad to see matches like Ishii and Zack Sabre Jr., and especially the Ishimori-Kushida match, only get about 12 minutes each, 10 to 12 minutes. But despite that, the action was still good. It was very solid, no complaints there. The Juice Cody match was, in my opinion, hot shit. I didn't like that match at all. That was the only negative on the entire show, action-wise. So that's my opinion. How about you on the show from what you saw, and what do you got?
Sure. Well, overall, I pretty much saw the I would describe as the three main events. Jay White versus Okada. That was an incredible match. I'm surprised they didn't go longer with that one. I thought they would definitely, pass the magic marker we've described to be 20 minutes or more.
It was only
inside 15 minutes.
Yeah, it was 14 minutes.
Yeah. But the exchange that they did within the 14 minutes was just incredible. Ton of reversals. I just love the choreography coming whenever Okada's stuff is always reversed on. It just looks amazing. And I think, originally speaking, obviously we had Kenny Omega have a hard time defeating Okada, and then suddenly Jay White comes in and takes out Okada.
Yeah, like no big deal, right?
Yeah, it's like no big deal. All of a sudden, Okada isn't the strong guy that Kenny Omega couldn't defeat many matches before. But I do say that the right guy won here because obviously Jay White is the newest member of OG Bullet Club.
It's just Bullet Club now.
Yeah, it's just Bullet Club now. The Elite is pretty much gone. Yeah, he definitely looked strong, and I think this solidifies him as a villain to be reckoned with in 2019. Obviously, on the last cast, I think we briefly discussed our thoughts on Jay White moving forward into this year, and I think 2019 is the year of Jay White. So you're going to see a ton of Switchblade on New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's going to be successful, and obviously, you're going to hear a lot about him on this Red Leaf Wrestlecast. So,
Yeah.
Jay White, everybody.
Yeah, even at New Year's Dash, he stood triumphantly after the tag match over both Okada and Tanahashi. So he's the guy going forward. And
yeah, definitely. I love his promos too. He really knows what he's doing. I think he was always meant to be a heel.
And it's interesting you point out how long it took Omega to beat Okada.
Yeah.
But Okada, this is the way I look at the story being told, is Okada was top of his game, top of the world, no one could beat him, right? And you know how winning streaks end, and then seemingly, look at it from a sports perspective, team will go on like a 6 to 28 game win streak or whatever you have, and then they lose like seemingly 7 in a row, and half of it's meaningless, right? That's how I'm looking at Okada's run. He comes off this major title defense, historic title run, and now he's just it's almost like he's losing all the time. I know they're not booking him like that constantly, but with Jay White beating him inside the 15 minutes, I think speaks to Okada's still on that losing streak. He's still not the Rainmaker yet.
Yeah, he's been on a losing streak as of late. But having Jay White defeat him really made Jay White look strong on TV, and I think that's what they're going for. Yeah, they're pushing this guy to the moon this year, so it had to start with taking out Okada.
Yeah, I mean, the push was subtly starting at last year's Wrestlekingdom with the IC title match against Tanahashi. Jay White wasn't quite at that point, and then had a nice subtle run, I feel, with the US title, and then his G1 run where he beat both Tanahashi and Okada kind of on back-to-back G1 nights. You're just like, whoa, who's this fucking guy?
Yeah.
And ever since then, they've been they see, this is an example of putting the rocket on the guy and not being pussyfoot about it. Because when I was thinking about Jay White, like, compare Jay White's last 6 months to McIntyre's last 6 months. Who's better?
Right, there you go.
You put the rocket on the guy, you put the rocket on the guy. Don't mess around.
Straight up.
So Jay White's a good example of that. What else you got, Rad?
Yeah. So in the background, while I was working hard, Ospreay and Ibushi went at it for the open weight title. Every time I glanced at the TV, oh man, there was just like some sort of spot going on. Incredible back and forth maneuvers between these two guys. Obviously, Kota Ibushi is one of the greatest in the ring today, and Will Ospreay, make no mistake, is definitely up there as well. So watching these two guys go at it, it was just poetry in motion, man.
Poetry in motion, I like that. Now I must ask the most important question. How many times did you have to step out of work and change your pants?
Yeah, I saw that. I guess since I wasn't really viewing, I didn't have to worry about climax, but I can imagine you have to change your pants.
You're right, the G1 climax is later.
There you go. Nicely done. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely good stuff, and I'm pretty sure a lot of fans were just watching it and they were just in awe with what these guys were pulling out of their sleeve.
They were doing things I've never seen before, and they didn't let up. It was exactly what I wanted out of these two. I particularly love the spot where Ibushi was upside down in the tree of woe in the corner, and Ospreay. Ospreay Indian style sits in front of him and starts slapping him, and then Ibushi's upside down slapping him back.
Yeah. And
before he can, totally fight back, Ospreay just starts kicking him in the face. That's where Ibushi got his concussion, and so that's misunderstood. I'm seeing a lot of reports coming out that it was actually the back elbow that got him.
It was actually from that segment.
It was actually from the kicking of Ibushi's head in the tree of woe.
Yeah, I heard something about the elbow, but I guess that wasn't the case. It was this one.
Yeah, the idea was Ospreay hits the assassin elbow or the blade or whatever they're calling it, and the kayfabe was supposed to be knocked him out, and that's what the stretcher job was. That was always going to happen. But he did actually get a concussion earlier in the match, so pretty cool. It was such a good match. It's good. They've brought in just a single month. They brought relevance to the open weight title again, which is nice to see.
Yeah, definitely. And who better represented than these two guys?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
They're high flying junior guys with the weight and height of heavyweights. That's pretty cool. Yep. I want an Ospreay Shingo match down the line myself. Badly.
Oh, that'd be nice to see. Yeah.
Badly. What else you got?
Next up, we had the second to the last match, the double main event, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It was Naito going up against Chris Jericho for their promotion's Intercontinental Championship. And holy crap, what a match. That was really good stuff. It broke that 20-minute magic mark.
Yes, it did.
Towards the end, these two guys really had the crowd and the viewers watching around the world in the palm of their hand. Incredible performance from the two. And as per who won here, Naito finally beat Chris Jericho for the championship. Again, I think I agree with that move. The right man won. Naito deserved it, and the story and the build-up to this match all year, just incredible stuff. This was pretty much the end of all of that. So really cool to see, and I'm happy that Naito is the Intercontinental champion for New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, I think it was a good mix of Western meets New Japan style wrestling.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Very unique.
That's what essentially it was. So
yeah, very unique. Jericho's still awesome in the ring despite being 50 years old.
Man, he can go.
He can still go as long as he changes his style. He doesn't try to keep doing the same thing that his body can't do anymore, which a lot, let's be honest, a lot of guys just can't handle that. They can't accept change even within themselves. And Naito's very good at taking bumps and making them look great, and then coming back at right times. He just gets flow of matches. Naito does.
Oh yeah,
he's so good at that.
Man, and those spots that they did outside onto the table, into the crowd, it was just really cool stuff.
Yeah. So Naito got it. I hope to see more of Jericho in New Japan. He's on record saying he wants to work with Okada and Tanahashi down the line. So, oh my God, Jericho for the IWGP title against Tanahashi. Yes. Oh my God, I think I think I just have to change my pants
just
thinking about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I think as AEW and New Japan. Granted, he might be a little bit more part-time to New Japan, but hell yeah, man, I would definitely have to see a Jericho versus Tanahashi match and whatnot. I think there's so much room for that, and that's a headlining pay-per-view right there.
Yeah, and then speaking of Tanahashi and Omega in the main event of Wrestlekingdom.
Yes.
The IWGP title. What'd you think of this 39-minute epic?
Incredible match. From what I saw, it was definitely my match of the night. Granted, it always does go to Kenny Omega. Man, whether they hit the 20, 30, going into 39 minutes for this match, they had the crowd and viewers watching around the world, as I mentioned before, in the palm of their hand. I was just glued to the TV screen. Everything they pulled off was just incredible. Oh man, just getting the Terminator thing going on with Kenny Omega still brings goosebumps and awesome stuff. And just knowing that was his last time in New Japan, that's crazy to think about. But obviously he's on to different things now. But as per the match itself, awesome stuff. I'm a Kenny Omega fan, as you are, JD.
Yep.
Tanahashi obviously is a veteran for New Japan. He's essentially their biggest star, the John Cena, if you will, for that promotion.
Yeah, but people actually like watching him in the main event.
Yes, that's the difference. Everybody loves his air guitar. They actually
oh my God, that was so good at the end.
Yes. So before we get into that, the end result: Tanahashi beats Kenny Omega for the IWGP Championship in an incredible match, and I think the right man won here. Granted, just from the matches that I've mentioned, obviously a lot of New Japan veterans and originals, so to speak, have been winning the championships, and it seems as if now everybody's been saying and talking, describing it to be a new era for New Japan, where now a lot of their homegrown talent are actually becoming the champions again.
Right.
Definitely a different era. No more Gaijin from, whether it be the Elite or Bullet Club at this point.
Right.
I don't know, maybe if Jay White is considered that, but either
Jay
way.
Jay White's 100% a homegrown talent.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I know he's not from Japan, but he's definitely that's pretty much where he's had his exposure. So he's a New Japan original. Either way, Tanahashi winning the championship, I thought was the right move. His speech at the end, doing the air guitar, man, it was just so cool to see, and I was a happy viewer watching.
Yeah, very emotional to see Tanahashi back on top. It was good. It was one of the best.
Finally won the big one again.
It was the best redemption story I can remember seeing. This match was one of the best Wrestlekingdom matches I've ever seen.
Yeah.
A couple spots stood out to me was the high fly flow through the table to the outside. And that played into the story of Tanahashi hates Omega's style, being too showmanship, all about pleasing the crowd rather than trying to win. Tanahashi kind of giving into that, thinking he needed to do this crazy spot to put Omega down. It cost him, at least for that part of the match. And I really liked Omega's last second knee block of the high fly flow near the end of the match. Where it's like Tanahashi goes up, he goes for the high fly flow, the frog splash, if you will. And it's basically he's going to hit it. And then at the last split second, Omega's knees come up. Because you usually see guys, as soon as the guy jumps, they put their knees up and you're like, oh. Now this was just last split. It was great timing. Speaks to Omega's ability in the ring. Tanahashi's trusting the guy. Tanahashi as a vet he never disappoints. This match could not be bad. It was impossible with these two guys.
Oh yeah, no, they're very impossible. You have two of the best going at it in the main event at Wrestle Kingdom. Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
So great stuff there. The other story of the night was all the titles changed hands, which was interesting. All of LIJ won their matches, so they got a clean sweep. And then Ishimori beat Kushida. So we're getting a match at New Beginnings near the end of the month.
Which is supposed to be the final showdown, right? Or the final match for Kushida?
Yeah, he's facing off against Tanahashi. The first time in their careers they're facing each other in a one-on-one match. So I'm vastly looking forward to that. I was
one hell of a farewell.
One hell of a farewell for Kushida, the face of the New Japan Junior Division the last, decade. So that's cool. With LIJ winning all their stuff, they look like a strong group again. But then at New Year's Dash, Suzuki Gun decimated them. So that was the big story there.
Yeah.
With that, we have Zack Sabre Jr. and Minoru Suzuki gunning for the tag titles. So that's going to be an amazing match against Evil and Sonata going down the line. But then we have on the other end of the spectrum, Taichi going for the Intercontinental title.
Yeah, I saw that. Issued the big challenge there.
Oh no. I don't know what mind they're in to have Taichi in the main event, but okay. I mean, they had one good match last year, but the other one was quite bad. So between Taichi and Naito.
Yeah, maybe they're just trying to do something new again. Obviously, they just had a major ding to their roster and cards, if you will. So I think they're probably trying to play their cards right, where they're bringing in, whether it be new talent or already established talent, but people we haven't seen at that, level of the card.
At that point, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't for one second think Taichi's going to win. If he does, that's really stupid booking.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. I think they just need to give up to Naito, and before he has another big one, obviously he needs to have some title defenses under his belt.
Yeah, so I think I'm with you on that. That's the idea there. Naito did cut a funny promo post, and he goes, "I hate this title, but the title must love me because he keeps coming back."
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, so that's funny. Suzuki-gun against LIJ, I mean, we saw him a billion times last year, but this year they seem to be having enough of this shit and going for it. And then good guy Tama Tonga is a thing. And
man, yeah, that's hilarious stuff.
Fucking love it.
I like it.
New man, new year, new man.
Old habit. Like, that fake smile, high-fiving everybody. It's hilarious stuff.
No, Rad, he's serious.
He's
really
serious.
trying. You can't break old habits just like that. It's tough to do, Rad. You gotta believe in Tama Tonga. I mean, he forgave. Chase Owens and Yujiro forgave Tama Tonga, so I think it's time we forgive him too. He's a good guy now.
Forgive him too. Good guy, Tama Tonga.
Yeah. So that was Wrestle Kingdom. New begin. They announced a lot of cool things going forward in the new year with the G1, the first night of the G1 being in San Francisco or something, or no, it's at the American Airlines Arena in Dallas. That's where it is.
Oh, no way, in Dallas?
Yeah.
Holy shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the first night of the G1's in Dallas, so rad.
I mean, it's still a long drive for me, but it's in my home state. I gotta make an effort, but yeah, those things are probably gonna sell out like in 15 minutes.
Yeah, you should get on that. Two Wrestle Kingdom shows next year in 2020. That's a lot of twos, I said. All right.
Yeah, either way, they've lost most of the elites. It looks like if they're still trying to branch out into the North American audience, and I think that's great.
Yeah, it's very good. They're expanding the product. The U.S. expansion was something we spoke about on the cast in 2018. I mean, we can see it happening with the U.S. title, what the idea was, and it seems like a success. And they're going for it in 2019. I hope it does well. I expect Ring of Honor talent in 2019 to make more appearances, maybe some pushes. With the talent lost, with the Elite, Ibushi most likely as well, Omega leaving, Kushida's gone. So, and this is an opportunity for their young lions to, the three of them that they want to push up to the card now, like Shota Umino, Ren Narita, those guys.
Yeah.
So cool stuff. That was Wrestle Kingdom, and before...
Hell of a start to the new year for them.
Hell of a start. Wrestle Kingdom was really good. I was entertained. But again, I thought the undercard matches were too short. That's my only complaint. Not bad to have, I would say. So I'm going to play one last drop. And we can get on to our WCW. Here it is. Okay, so before we get into WCW, I have a 5-star review to read, Rad.
Very cool. Shoot.
As I pull it up here it be. Only appropriate that the first one we read is from the Viva La JD. Our
shout out to him.
Our favorite Australian from the Smack It Down podcast.
Yeah.
5 stars. If it's anime, wrestling, or gaming, this podcast has you beat. There is nothing quite like it on the internet. The hosts and guests have so much chemistry that I'm honestly surprised this podcast is not in the upper tier of review casts. So whether it's retro or modern gaming or anime, this show has you covered. Yeah. Thank you,
there you go.
Viva La JD. That guy's a stud. He's very attractive. Go hit him up on Tinder.
There you go. Does he actually have a profile?
I don't know. All right. If you want to leave an iTunes or Stitcher review, head on over Red Leaf Retrocast. You will have your review read and a shout out on the cast. And best of all, you will be entered into our ongoing contests. And this one is for a couple of pops and zone casts. We'll ship it worldwide. So hooray to that. Alrighty. So, Rad, we've watched enough episodes of WCW Thunder where we're finally at this so-called pay-per-view named Spring Stampede.
Yes, 1998.
What is this thing? Tell me about it.
All right, so Spring Stampede is supposed to be WCW's big spring pay-per-view. Took place every April. This one took place on April 19th, 1998, and hailed live from Denver, Colorado. So the big story going off here is still NWO is fine, way before Bullet Club was doing it. Macho Man Randy Savage was going up for the championship against Sting, to the dismay of Hollywood Hogan. Now the match suddenly turned into a no DQ, so that was a pretty surprising stipulation, but it only meant that shenanigans were going to happen. So we'll go ahead and definitely touch base on that topic once we get there to the main event, Macho Man Randy Savage, Sting for the World Championship. So our night starts off with the boring air siren of Saturn. I know you're not a big fan of that, JD. Making his way to the ring to face none other than Goldberg, who is currently 73-0. The undefeated streak is still a big thing going on with him right now. And, the next opponent obviously was Saturn. Goldberg had already had some run-ins with the Flock, so here he is against Saturn. I will say that watching this match, although it may have been a bit sloppy in some parts,
oh sure,
possibly more coming from Saturn's end.
Yeah, surprising, right?
Yeah, I'm a Goldberg mark. I was a fan of his ever since day one. So either way, this was the first match that actually went longer than just a minute. Most of the matches up until then were just Goldberg hits the ring, spear, jackhammer, 1, 2, 3, and Saturn actually gave him a run for his money, and this was actually talked about by the commentators as well.
Oh yeah, they were clocking it too.
Yeah, that went longer than ever expected to a decent 8 minutes. Somehow Saturn pulled it off, but hey, so it was just a typical back and forth big man type of match. Obviously there was some botches here and there, but the big thing coming out of this was Goldberg was still defending his streak, and he had to pretty much fight off the Flock. So there was a sweet spear to Billy Kidman, and lastly a 6 strength reversal of the Rings of Saturn, standing into a jackhammer. Obviously the crowd was into it, viewers watching at home.
Yeah, I went crazy for that spot. I was like,
I know you were into it. So yeah, definitely on the edge of our. So Goldberg pretty much after the match looks into the camera and he says, "Who's next?" First time we ever heard it, so this is where it begins.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, but I mean, we've been watching Thunder since episode 1, and we've seen a couple pay-per-views now, and I can't remember ever hearing Goldberg actually say who's next.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because I think that wasn't actually coined by catchphrase that was meant to be, but more of signs in the audience and the commentators. Obviously the streak was a big thing, so the question just came out to be who's next, and I think Goldberg finally embraced that and now said it to the camera, and that became his official catchphrase moving forward in 1998.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
So there was a couple spots besides the reverse Rings of Saturn one. There was the Saturn mid rope springboard botch to the outside, where he essentially slips and then lands kind of on his head. That looked pretty nasty. But then there was an awesome mid rope press slam by Goldberg to Saturn, which was just this like feat of strength that just looked so cool. Yeah,
it did.
Yeah, that was awesome.
This is where he really looked strong and intimidating in this.
Yeah, I do want to mention that the arena and stage design, this old Western ranch set, looked really cool. I quite liked it. It was very unique.
Yeah, although it was a spring themed pay-per-view, it always had like a Western ranch set for some reason. Even their commercials promoting the pay-per-view always had like cowboys fighting in a bar.
Right.
The Nitro girls were dressed as cowgirls, stuff like that. So funny. I think that might have started maybe something having to do with the 4 Horsemen, because I know they were always coming out in those promos.
Oh yeah.
So I'm thinking that's why they got that Western Ranch gimmick for the pay-per-view. But nonetheless, it was always meant to be a spring pay-per-view. Just Stampede added to the mix.
Yeah, the wagons, the wooden railings, the bull or whatever it was, the old Western barn entrance way where they'd open the door. Yeah, it was cool. Yeah,
wrestling in the South, you gotta love it.
Or in Colorado in this case.
So yeah, so moving on over to we had is Chavo Guerrero, who was accompanied to the ring with his uncle Eddie Guerrero in his corner. What I thought was funny is that he made Chavo wear his shirt which said Eddie Guerrero is my favorite wrestler.
Yeah,
or
fucking
like
funny.
Yeah, and then in the back it says Cheat to Win, who obviously Chavo was not a fan of because he was the face in this whole feud.
Right.
And Eddie Guerrero was pretty much forcing him to do things his way. So that was the big story leading up into this. So you pretty much had your typical cruiserweight match between Chavo and Ultimo Dragon, 2 amazing performers. But again, Eddie Guerrero was the flagship here, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole story was him trying to force Chavo to do things, take advantage of certain spots. There was moments where Ultimo Dragon was open to cheating win, and Chavo would stop in his tracks and either help him up or not go for it. And Eddie Guerrero was just yelling at him, "Go for it! This is your chance. You got to do it. Cheat to win." And Chavo was just not having any of it. So ultimately, it led to Chavo Guerrero losing, and Eddie Guerrero was just pretty much pissed about it. And Chavo saying, "I don't cheat to win. I don't cheat to win." I think Eddie Guerrero gave him a couple of slaps after this whole thing. Good stuff. I don't know if you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the match. Performance itself.
Yeah, it was a nice, simple, ongoing story here. Good technical, high flying, good mixture of the two. Nice amount of time. I quite enjoyed it. I thought the good spot of when Chavo accidentally drop kicks Ultimo Dragon in the balls as he was flying.
Oh yeah.
And that's what led to Eddie losing his freaking mind outside on the outside the ring. He's like, "Chavo, this is your chance. Do it." "No, Eddie. Fucking do it."
Yeah.
And even at the beginning of the match, when Eddie was putting the towel over his head, turning his back, he's shaking it. He's like, "I'm too embarrassed to even look at this guy," kind of deal.
Yeah, he's not a true Guerrero.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's lame. He loses all the time. He needs to embrace me, or he won't win. And yeah, cool stuff. Ultimate Dragon looked good. Story told, I liked it. It was funny.
Yeah, this was good stuff. One of the many things that was good that coming out of the cruiserweight division. It's not hard to put in a story there.
Yeah. No, yeah, you just let them go at it, and then just put in something real simple like this.
Yeah, it definitely keeps the fans engaged, and everybody remembers that little feud between Eddie and Chavo, which ultimately led to Chavo going nuts and bringing some stick horse named Pepe and all that later on in the year. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff.
And then they repeated it in WWE many times.
Yeah. So yeah, that was pretty much the cruiserweight match. Then we cut over to Mike Tenay spending all day on the internet. Then they cut over to DDP, who was at the WCW internet booth. I remember that very much. So I think WCW was even doing a podcast before it was even a thing. They used to talk about it. They had a. I think if you logged on to WCW.com, you were able to like read and listen to like the entire interview, whoever it was that they were talking to. This was a really cool way of utilizing the internet to build up, promos, stories, and all of that.
Yeah, way ahead of their time.
Way ahead of their time. And it's funny. For some reason, DDP was like the face of that WCW internet booth, because every time I saw that little segment, it was always Diamond Dallas Page getting interviewed. So
yeah, him and Raven, because Raven would just spout. Yes, I remember those things with Raven just spouting off nonsense all the time.
Yeah, Raven, Chris Jericho did it a lot as well. It was usually like the same recurring guys. So
it's funny because both Jericho and Raven have podcasts nowadays. They're still going strong at that.
Yeah, it just stayed with them. Like, yeah, back in the WCW days when the internet was. So then we have a match for the TV title between Chris Benoit and Booker T. Two awesome performers, wrestling legends going at it at Spring Stampede 98 for the TV title to a no time limit. However, keep in mind that they had 2 time limit draws on Nitro, so I'm guessing the whole point was just to make sure that there was a winner here.
Yeah, I think it was Mike Tenay. No, it was Tony Schiavone. He goes, he made it adamant that the TV title is always defended, on TV, but the matches have 10-minute time limits. So the way this was booked was Benoit and Booker T were so even with each other, there wasn't enough time to finish the match between the two. So that was the story going in here.
Okay. Well, good stuff either way. You had some back and forth action, Booker T tapping out, simply missing reaching the ropes from Chris Benoit. So Benoit pulls the referee up, and Booker T does the Harlem sidekick over the ref, hitting Benoit and pinned him forward.
Yeah, so there was that little spot near the end where Benoit pulls the ref to taking the scissor kick, and that was a little controversy on here. So there was a little mishappening when the ref was down, where Booker T was reaching for the ropes, but did he tap out or did he just miss the ropes? That was the controversy surrounding this match. So, but the end was cool, where Booker T did hit the Harlem sidekick, jumping over the ref and into Benoit. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Yeah, 14 minutes. Not bad. It got a good amount of time, and it deserved it.
Yeah, good amount of time for the TV championship.
Now this next match,
So,
this was funny. So it was British Bulldog versus NWO member Kurt Hennig, with both their managers, aka Bulldog with Neidhart, and Kurt Hennig had Rick Rude, as per the usual. And in this case, because Rick Rude had been handcuffing people lately, as we saw on Thunder in our previous episode, the stipulation in this were both managers were handcuffed together.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So then, so the match goes on for seemingly only a couple minutes. It was business as usual. But then all of a sudden, Neidhart just attacks a random cop for seemingly no reason. The camera work is very interesting because you couldn't tell who the cop was or why Neidhart was attacking this cop, because it was trying to. They were playing it off like with the camera that they were trying to keep the camera on the action in the ring, but this thing going on outside the ring was also interesting, so they kept going back and forth, but missing both things, and it played into everyone being confused, including the audience. I think that was on purpose. So as Neidhart is busy choking out the cop, Rude somehow unlocks the cuffs. He was handed a key somehow, I guess from the cop, right? That's what you assume. Or he stole the keys from the cop. That was the other assumption. It was one of the two. So Rude unlocks the cuffs. He cuffs Neidhart to essentially the ring post, where the turnbuckle and the ring post meet. And so by distraction, then Hennig wins quickly, and then that leads to a massive post-match beatdown. Crowd heavily hates it, lots of heat, and then right at the end of the beatdown, it was revealed that the cop that got the shit kicked out of him by Neidhart was Vincent all along. It was Officer Vincent, Rad, and he had handed the keys to Rude. They just happened to find another camera that had a better angle of it all.
Yeah.
I laughed my ass off when I think it was Bobby Heenan just shouts really hard, "It was Officer Vincent all along, today."
So exaggerated.
Oh, heavily. Garbage match, but super I was entertained. I think that was the point. Because it wasn't a match, it was just all about handcuffing people.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was the story in itself.
So, moving on.
So, moving on, we have Prince Ikea going up against Chris Jericho for the Cruiserweight Championship. Pretty much a real good, straightforward match. Went on for 10 minutes. Definitely a mimic of something from what we see today. So obviously a lot of the cruiserweights at the time were ahead of their time. A lot of good spots, good wrestling between the two, near falls, and obviously Jericho, who was always a master at his character work, very solid. So nothing much to say here other than that it was a solid cruiserweight performance.
Yep, Jericho wins. Oh,
Jericho wins.
There you go.
So then we have Scott Steiner and Buff Bagwell, except Buff comes out with a hand injury.
Oh, boy.
The match is supposed to be canceled. But J.J. Dillon gets to the ring with the doctor, and Buff blows.
I love J.J. Dillon.
So the match is on. So do I. He was always always a class act, and whether he was a good guy or bad guy, he always had the four horsemen in him. So yeah, J.J. Dillon was an awesome guy. So yeah, the match is on. Luger and Rick Steiner rush to the ring, and we actually got a fight. So it's a basic heel takeover style tag team match here until finally Lex Luger gets the hot tag of his clotheslines. The bionic forearm.
Yep.
Rick Steiner cuts off Scott Steiner. They stare, and Scott bolts out of the ring to the back. Yeah, he's not afraid of his brother one bit. So pretty good stuff here. So
Scott's totally wanting to fight his brother. He runs. It was a sprint, man.
God, just a whole year of build up, and he was always trying to get his way out of these matches against Rick Steiner. So
well, so far it's so good, Red.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah, definitely. It was so far so good. Good build up there with the Steiners, and obviously the crowd pops hard for Lex Luger, super hard. The Torture Rack win. I was a mark for the Torture Rack. I know you're not much of a fan of Lex Luger, but he was a big deal in 1990, so that was really cool to see.
Well, we're not hopping on the Lex Express, I suppose.
No, we're not.
Not much for praise there if we're comparing it to that, but I mean, the hand injury angle was pretty funny, I will admit. JJ Dillon gets the doctor out. The acting.
Yeah, Buff was already just like pretending all kinds of injuries now.
Yeah. The acting was very cringy, terrible, but it was funny in its own way because of how bad it was.
I think that was what it was meant to be, because obviously Buff Bagwell was supposed to be playing the role of a liar, so I think that was the whole point.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned this earlier with Jurn Simmons and WXW pulling off the "he's still sick" scene.
Yeah,
and getting out of the match. It was very much reminiscent of this when I was watching the WXW thing. I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of like Buff Bagwell deal on Spring Stampede. Except the heels got one over. Not in that case. Alrighty. Yeah.
You want to go and take this one, JD? I know you're a fan of the chairman of WCW.
Oh, I am. Bonus luchador match, something that wasn't announced on the card. So I mentioned earlier with the kind of the makeshift singles matches, if they're trying to start a story, they shouldn't be on pay-per-views. Well, in this case, it kind of matched that sentiment, because La Parka had been interfering with Psychosis and causing him issues. So there was a story going on, but they kind of just threw it in here. La Parka had his sick gold skeleton gear, which we mentioned earlier with MLW. So he's much skinnier in this match.
And I want to say they had that gold one, or at least you can create it in WCW Revenge. I used to love that costume work. But anyways, go ahead.
So this was your 10-minute kind of in-between style match. It was fun lucha action. Some botches, but not bad. It's luchador wrestling, so you can expect a botch or two. They're just trying too much too fast. The crowd didn't care, though. So this is screwy setup for Psychosis. Is guillotine leg drop, but he wins, fine. I mean, we could move on. I wish this match wasn't on the card. I mean, I still enjoyed the match as a match, but I felt like there's still more story to tell, and this was just kind of eating up time, which could have gone to other things.
Yeah, it definitely a filler here, but as you mentioned before, a lot of that stuff may have been answered on another episode of Thunder or even WCW Saturday Night.
Well, it definitely wasn't answered on Thunder because we would have caught it, but the story going on with La Parka and Psychosis was seemingly just kind of getting started. So this was just a makeshift kind of throw-in filler match. So
yeah,
I don't think it should have been on the card. They could have had the go-home angle on a Thunder or Nitro or something.
All the other big contract guys who had creative control, I'm pretty sure didn't want to go longer than 5 minutes. So yeah, they needed fillers.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot more to it than that.
And I use that with sarcasm. Even though I'm a fan of all those guys, but yeah, they were getting very paid very well to pretty much do nothing. So.
Well, where does that take us after the luchador match?
Okay, so
and La Parka loses again, I have to add. God damn it. He never wins.
Losing streak, but highly entertaining and always stood out from the cruiserweight.
Yes.
So moving on over, it's bat match time. So that's right. This is a bat match. So the whole idea is that bat is pretty much hung on a pole. The person, I guess, can go ahead and get it and use it to their advantage, and that's the person who wins the match. So in this match, you have both Hogan and Kevin Nash coming out separately. Two guys from the same organization, the New World Order, coming out separately, but NWO is fine. And then they're going to go up against
it's fine,
Roddy
Trust
Piper.
Me.
They're going to go up against Roddy Piper and the Giant. So Piper in good shape, looking very good in 98. We must say, JD, I totally agree with that. I think he looked really cool during this time. Pretty crazy how small Piper was in comparison to the other three guys in the match. Obviously, Piper wasn't working out, hitting the weights, not as big as he was back in the 80s. I'm not sure if he was part of the whole steroid scandal, but he did look bigger back during his WWF days. Obviously here in WCW, he actually looked just like an average guy, somebody that you can, who can be your dad or the guy next door. I did notice that. So moving on over, so the match was fine and went on like a, pretty much a WCW tag match would at the time. Piper had the crowd every time, as he always did.
He was so good at playing the crowd.
Yeah, he knew how to work the crowd. Everything he did, the anticipation of just removing his jacket would get the crowd going. So he really knew how to work it.
What a character!
No,
Like this
what a
was just
character. One
even
of the great-
like when we talked on Thunder for the last episode, where he cut a promo on Giant's shoulders and then mic drops it in '98. I was like, oh my
Yes.
god! Like, how was this guy not world champion?
I agree, man. Even at that age, it's like he just knew.
Man, like he was just so over. Works the crowd. The way he would have his in-ring psychology play into whatever match stipulation there was. Like, this is a fucking bat match on a pole we're talking about, and
The crowd's into it.
the crowd's into it. I'm into Piper. I don't give a shit about Giant, as most people kind of didn't either, but they just liked him coming out being big. But man, I adored Piper in this match, and I was quite curious to what the angle of Nash and Hogan were going to be. You know, I said my memory is phasey of this era.
Sure.
It's been so long. I do remember what happens. I just don't know when everything happens. So I'm like waiting for all this stuff to go down. I just
Yeah.
don't remember when it does.
It'll
And
connect eventually as we
Yeah.
go down the line. Yeah, because a lot of this stuff is actually going longer than I actually thought. But the time frame from when everything went down with the whole Wolfpack thing going on, yeah, it definitely makes sense.
yeah, so I'm just like, when's this fucking Wolfpack thing on? They keep hinting it. It's
Yeah,
hinted,
like
hinted,
3 months
hinted.
and counting, you know. I mean, every episode we've been doing Thunder, and it's like just not quite there yet. But definitely, it's building up to that. So it was good stuff.
Yeah, we're
But,
4 months into
yeah,
Thunder,
The
so
Wolfpack is still hasn't officially kicked off yet.
the bad boys of
but,
wrestling aren't coming yet.
Not yet. So pretty much, Rowdy Piper gets the bat eventually. Then Hulk Hogan throws it to the side. The Disciple.
Oh
who
yeah,
had
this
been
is where the
helping
match
out
kind of
Hogan,
lost me.
yeah, comes out with a bat of his own. Obviously, NWO shenanigans. Hulk Hogan accidentally hits Kevin Nash with the bat.
And then I was brought
So-
back in.
It's brought back in. So after a little more shenanigans, NWO finally wins, but Kevin Nash is pretty much pissed off. Granted, for good reason. Again,
Yeah.
going into this match separately, there was a lot of hostility between the two there. So post-match, Hulk Hogan hits Kevin Nash with the bat, and there's that. So NWO is fine, guys.
Yeah, I had no memory of Hogan hitting Nash with the bat. Zero.
Yeah, I didn't, but only because I didn't see this pay-per-view live, and by the time
Oh.
I only saw the match between Sting and Macho Man, I think, on a videotape later on. So I
Okay.
kind of didn't remember that either.
Yeah, that was very interesting. I'm like, okay, Nash is
That would have been a
mad.
good
He's gonna.
Nitro segment.
Yeah, I was like, okay, Nash is mad. He's gonna be pissed. He's gonna like tease hitting him with the bat, and then probably something on Nitro or something. And then Hogan just
Sure.
straight up hits him, and he's ah ha 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 ha. I'm like, oh, okay. Shuffling my hands together. I can't wait to watch Nitro now, and that's kind of the fucking point of wrestling, right?
There you go.
You want to watch the next show.
Yeah, find
All
out
right.
what happens.
Yeah, we all do.
So next up, I'm gonna let you talk about the next one because I know it's your boy Diamond Dallas Page.
Oh, it's the People's Champion, man. It's the
Yep.
U.S. title match of Champ DDP under Raven's rules against Raven, whom has stolen the United States title belt, in which we saw
Yeah.
it happen on MTV Live.
Freaking Raven had to do it on MTV.
And the stipulation is the winner shall also face Goldberg on Nitro the very next night. Oh
Right.
boy. So this match used the entire Spring Stampede stage, all the props, everything, getting hit into the wagon, being thrown into the wooden barriers. I mean, everything. Hell, Sick Boy even gave Raven the kitchen sink to use at one point, so being super
Yeah.
corny.
Oh,
kinda
man.
popped for
And
that.
That was Raven's rules for.
Yeah. What's funny is just last year in ICW, there was a whole like year-long segment used with a guy using a kitchen sink and what have you, all culminating at their Fear and Loathing pay-per-view. This just happened like a couple months ago, so pretty cool. They definitely got it from something from WCW days. So DDP tries to fight off the flock until an unknown dude cracks DDP upside the head. So even flow DDT, Raven wins. Now he gets to face Goldberg on Nitro. Well, I know where this comes. I remember this Nitro very vividly the very next night. So, but I don't remember the Thunder after that Nitro. So that's going to be
Looking
fun
forward to it.
for the next cat. Zero crowd reaction from Raven winning. Oh
Yeah,
well.
I guess they could have cared less.
Yeah.
The fans already wanted DDP versus Goldberg, but I'm glad the build-up didn't take place until Halloween Havoc later that year.
Yes, I agree.
Match.
I agree.
By that time, Goldberg was already at a level where he was, world champion, one of the best. Here, they were still building him up. So to face somebody like DDP, Goldberg needed some time.
Yeah, it would have elevated Goldberg even faster, but a slow build and story always does wonders for characters. And if Goldberg would have just gotten a win over DDP, it would have just hurt DDP in the end, make him look weak, in my opinion. We know what's going to happen on Nitro. Goldberg is going to beat the shit out of Raven and win that US title, and then we know the rest is history. But poor Raven was the fall guy, but everyone hated him anyways. He had a good character. It was super fun. Hey, I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the hell out of this match, to be honest.
Yeah, so did I. I remember it vividly as well.
Onto our main event, man. We're coming to the end here.
This was the match that I cared for as a kid watching this. And,
God, yeah.
I think it was an awesome match now. I think every time these two guys always met, it was always a match. And that was two of my favorite wrestlers going up against each other. Sting versus the Macho Man Randy Savage for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. What else can I say more other than, it was pretty much a good back and forth action. I do want to add that Macho Man obviously was accompanied to the ring by the beautiful Miss Elizabeth. I always thought she looked so hot in her NWO t-shirts. But anyways,
gorgeous.
Gorgeous. I miss her. Rest in peace. So Liz hits the ring after a ref bump. She takes a bump, always has.
Right.
Then Hogan comes out and pushes Savage, and then Nash helps Savage. So again, nothing but NWO shenanigans here. Savage finally wins by power bombing Sting. So Macho Man Randy Savage is the new World Heavyweight Champion. What does this mean for the NWO? The only thing I can say is that Hulk Hogan is pissed. So the show pretty much closes with Hulk Hogan saying, "Hey, Nash is not supposed to do that. He's not supposed to be champion." So it was just kind of funny. He was just acting like he was pissed off about everything. So that's where we go from there. So again, Macho Man Randy Savage, new champion. Although I always liked Sting more than Macho Man. I was happy that Macho Man was champion, even if it was for a short while. Good stuff here.
I agree. The match I think could have used more time of the back and forth, to be honest, but I still enjoyed it.
I mean, just the small amount of time that they had, it was incredible. But obviously, the whole story was built around Hogan and Nash not seeing eye to eye. And I think this was the first time that we actually saw, Nash and Savage had already had some sort of history going on with this whole breakaway.
Yes.
But this already solidified them as working together to just stick it to Hogan. So if you want to call this the beginning of the Wolfpack, so be it. I'm pretty sure it's right around the corner, and we'll definitely get there as we move along with our WCW Thunder spots.
Yeah, and the fun thing is we just saw in the previous pay-per-view Sting retain the title via shenanigans of Savage helping Sting win. And he said
another future member.
and
Spoiler alert, guys.
Well, yeah, the red and black face paint. Yeah,
and that happens. His turn happens on WCW Thunder. So looking forward to that episode.
So there's some story continuity there where Savage helps Sting win. Savage thinks he's better than Sting. The cage match happens where Savage gets involved, but shit happens, which was garbage. But hey, at least the story makes sense, I suppose, later on. And then now we have Savage beat Sting, but Nash, because of the infighting with the NWO, helps Savage get the win. Pretty cool. There was one particular moment in the match that didn't set right with me, and that was how long it took Hogan to come down and push Savage off the top turnbuckle as he was going for the elbow drop. He seemed to be up there for like an hour. He's pointing his hands at the sky as he does before his elbow drop, but he was there forever. So that was just kind of mistimed. But minor complaints. Overall, Rad, this pay-per-view is my favorite WCW pay-per-view we've done to date on this podcast, and it's not even close.
Yeah, it was a really good pay-per-view.
This was excellent.
You know, I do have fond memories of both Super Brawl and Uncensored, but they're narrowed down to maybe just a couple of matches. I want to say this one overall, I have to agree with you, is the best one so far.
Yeah, the whole card was good. I was excited for every single match. Even the freaking Buff Bagwell match got me.
Yeah, good story there.
That's saying something. The Buff Bagwell, Scott Steiner, and Lex Luger with Rick Steiner. 3 of the 4 guys I don't really care about, but somehow even that match was good. The Bat match had me interested because the Roddy Piper was on fire. With the stories being told, Raven wins the U.S. title, which a fun match. Even though the crowd didn't care for a few of these matches, like Prince Iaukea and heavily booing the Bulldog Hennig. Like, as a fan looking on the outside, I was into it. I really look forward to the next couple weeks of Thunder. I want to see the fucking tag titles back.
Yeah,
we haven't seen them in months.
Yeah.
You know, it's Nash and Hall have the tag belts, but we haven't seen them because of all this Nash going with the Giant and the NWO infighting.
Oh, well, there is a payoff at Slamboree, which is only a month away, so we're probably going to review about 3 or 4 Thunders before that.
Yes.
Good stuff happened there. So, yeah, we're definitely going to see some major tag team storyline.
Yeah, it's just been something I've noticed over the past few weeks where the tag titles are just they're not just being used, they're absent completely.
Yeah.
So I bet they're on Nitro, but on Thunder we just haven't seen them, even though the guys have been on Thunder.
Oh yeah.
Well, alrighty. What else did you think of the pay-per-view as a whole, as we start to close out the cast?
Oh, Spring Stampede, nostalgic. Having fun revisiting all these shows from my childhood. I definitely watched both programs. Always flip back and forth between Nitro and Monday Night Raw, but I was always a WCW guy, and just pretty much seeing all these NWO guys in there. All my favorites: Kevin Nash, Macho Man Randy Savage, to WCW guys: Sting, Goldberg, Lex Luger, you name it. Just brings back a whole ton of memories, and that was from a time that it was a great time to be a wrestling fan. So good stuff.
All right. Well, with that, we got some shout outs here. Cool. If you want some shout outs on the cast, I've been trying to lay out a tweet of when we plan to record. And if you want a nice little simple shout out on the cast, you can just retweet or like the pinned tweet on the profile a day or two before we record the cast. Rad Zero, you're one of them. Good shout out to you.
Thank you.
Callous Charm, hell yeah.
Cool.
The Late Drinkers podcast, and Costa, who retweets just about everything we do. So cool shout outs there.
Thanks a lot, guys.
And if you want to join a retro community, whether it's a retro wrestling / video game anime or what have you, you just enjoy nostalgia, I recommend checking out the Retro Twitch Discord community, or head over to Retro Twitch on Instagram and Twitter. We're kind of partnered up with them. It's a fun little community. I don't talk a whole lot in it, but I do like what's the word, lurking. I just like the conversations everyone have in there. It's very cool. You can hit up Gilo_UK, GILO_UK. He can get you in there. A lot of international flavor in there. And onto our wrestler rankings. Our first one of the new year. We got a top.
This is where the math begins.
This is where the math begins. So I doubt Walter is going to have a runaway with it in 2019. But we're doing something different because the landscape has vastly changed. We're no longer doing
the UK thing going on today.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure you marked out for that then. I don't want to spoil anything here on the podcast.
I mean, yeah, we'll talk about it on the next one. I did have a boner. I will say that much. Did pop one. All right. So we're no longer doing our 3-tier rankings. We're breaking it down to just a single ranking this year, and we're doing a straight top 15. So, and then a top 10 for women still. Makes it a lot more simple and a little bit more competitive, I would think.
Yeah, it does.
And we're doing this because, as I said, the landscape has just so vastly changed. And since we're also covering less WWE and Ring of Honor, that I think it's just going to be easier to keep track of all rather than forcing names at times. Mm-hmm. So 15, working our way 15 up. 15's Timothy Thatcher, 14 Tracy Williams, 13 Orange Cassidy. You might not recognize those two names, but that is from the Beyond Wrestling show that I went and saw myself. 12 LAX, 11 Chris Jericho, 10 Aussie Open from Progress in their tag match, 9 Ibushi, 8 Okada, 7 Jay White, 6 Absolute Goddamn Andy, 5 Pete Dunne, 4 Tyler Bate for their amazing 30-plus minute match in Progress, 3 William Ospreay, he's back on top, 2 Kenny Omega, 1 Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Very nice. I like this list.
A lot of Wrestle Kingdom ones as expected, but
yep.
There's some guys slipped in there.
Yeah.
And then the women, 10 up. Momo Watanabe at 10, 9 Kagetsu, 8 Starlight Kid, 7 Hazuki, 6 Jungle Kiona, 5 Utami Hayashishita, a fun name to say, 4 Hikaru Shida, 3 Risa Sera, 2 Tsukasa Fujimoto, and 1 Maya Yukihi. So a lot of Stardom and Ice Ribbon names on the list this time. But hey, the WXW women's matches on their last one weren't impressive, and neither were the Progress ones. The Beyond Wrestling ones had good women's matches, but they were it was a 10-person tag, so hard to really pick out anyone's single from there. But I will say that Cobra Moon and Penelope Ford they were bright spots in that match, sure. Well, and that's the list. I'm sure we'll see more WWE names make the list in the next cast, since that's more WWE style.
Sure thing.
Yeah. I did hear Becky Lynch, Charlotte, and Carmella had a good showing on SmackDown this past week.
So I heard, yeah.
Yeah. But hey.
But I'm pretty sure it was only from 2 of them.
Well, you might be right. It was probably Charlotte. She was terrible. I mean, she doesn't know what she's doing in that ring. I'm sure there was a fucking dance break or something in it still. So.
Yeah, as always.
All right. If you want to join us, Red Leaf Retrocast, hit us up on Twitter, the Instagram at BowlingJD. Hit up my boy Rad Zero. He's got a YouTube page at Rad Zero. He's also got a Twitter. Hit him up there. Plenty of casts going forward. And yeah, this has been episode 22 of the Wrestlecast, and we hope to see you next time. Rad, thank you for joining me yet again.
As always, thank you for having me, JD.
Ooh.
So we clocked in at close to 3.5.
Oh, yes, we did. That was long. We've gone longer, but that was long. Oh, that was super fun. It was a good Saturday night. For me, anyways.
Yeah, it was. Very fun. Midway, if I got kind of quiet, my dog was like freaking out on a bone over here. I thought she was choking, but she actually made it through. So I was just like muting, and I was just concerned. I was about to tell you, hey, I might have to cut it off, and then we'll continue later tomorrow. But nah, she was all right. She was just doing something stupid.
Just doing something stupid. It's fine. It worked out.
Yeah, like she bit the bone in half, and I think she tried swallowing half of the bone whole. So I was
my god.
But I think she always does that. I'm just not around to see it.
Oh boy. All right, I'm excited for Thunder for the next cast. I don't know how busy you are on weekends all the time, but we could make kind of this Saturday night shorter with every 2 weeks. One of my goals was to do this more consistently, like
with an actual time slot or scheduled.
Yeah. Because there are times when, let me just shut off the stream.